Here. I didn't know about that he is live in court today, but I'm going to pop us over there really quick because he's going to be there any minute now. So let me show you the screen. This is Para Women Radio, women supporting women in the unusual. If you could give my live a thumbs up, it helps me dance out into the algorithm, bring more people to the party. It's just something that's really appreciated.
Or is the evidence that has been gathered?
Let me get us to where
a very lengthy.
Okay,
process.
so what I understand is he has three cases today that we're going to be seeing. I'm a little behind on the Bryan Kohberger case because I've been following the Lori Vallow case.
Be interesting to see how this all shakes out from here as well. I'm being told in our comment section to refresh Brian Enton's Twitter. Let's do that. Yeah, 2 minutes ago. The victims' families are arriving into the courtroom. Kaylee's sister, Olivia, has her baby with her as well. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
How are you guys feeling about this case?
So the victims' families are going to be represented in the courtroom today. Still no word on whether or not Bryan Kohberger has been let into the courtroom.
I gotta make sure
so the time
you guys
is
can
now
hear me. Can you guys hear me?
8:58 Pacific, 11:58 Eastern time. Jennifer Koffendorfer, JB Buno here with you live on stream. I'm paying attention to the
pull
feeds,
up my live to make
and
sure
we're
you
of
can
course
hear
going
me.
to
So
share the feed once it
I'm gonna
comes
pull up my
down
live
from the
and see
pool
if you can
camera
hear me.
crew. So again, reminder, as
You
people
can.
are now filing in, everyone's now, okay, the time is now 9 Pacific,
Okay,
noon
guys.
Eastern. Where is the live stream? We want to see inside the courtroom. It is legally not allowed. Let's just quickly talk about that.
Yeah, that's what's going to
Jennifer,
happen.
because
It's
some cases don't allow.
From what I understand, we're going to see the stream after the case. So we're going to be one behind each case. They're going to do one case, and then I guess we're going to see it, and then the next and the next. So we're always going to be one case behind, from what I understand.
Some cases don't allow video access at all. Thinking about the Lori Vallow case and some of the oddities there as well. I'm always going to be on the side of transparency. I always want to be inside the courtroom. I always think that there's also an element that people don't understand where I'm giving an example. There are people that want to be in the courtroom that sometimes just it's not logical for them to do so.
Yeah, everything's up in the air. He might not even
whether or not
in
they're
court
in a different
today.
Zoom has come a long way as well as far as granting
I
people
suspect he will be because the family's is there.
that need to be
this
in
is something that they want to see.
courtroom access. But what do you make of the fact that we can't stream it live, but we can play it back the moment that it's done? I mean, we're still going to see everything that happens inside the courtroom. We're just going to see it in essence, on a delay.
Well, I think this judge is very.
I'm happy we can see it instead of just listening to it.
In terms of wanting this information out. So let me give you an example. What happens if there's an incident? What happens if there's an incident in there?
Mm-hmm.
then this way,
Let me see
because
what
it's on
the
the
other
delay,
streams are doing.
he cannot have that incident be released. So I think that that's the reason, not that anybody is expecting an incident, but he's being cautious. He does not want this case exploited any more than it may be. And so he's going to be cautious as to what is out and when.
And that leads us to the gag order. So the gag order done in an effort to protect the process, to protect the witnesses. But there have been some groups out there representing the media that believe that it is too strict of a gag order.
I think it's too strict of a gag order.
There's going to be a hearing today on the gag order after the arraignment itself.
I don't
a media
think they're
coalition has come
though, but it is like
forward
outrageous.
And collectively.
But there's so many people following true crime now. I think things are gonna be changing.
Arguing that this is too strict, that there's a violation of First Amendment rights, that the media coalition took it to the Idaho Supreme Court, who said, actually, no, you have to state your case.
We are streaming to Facebook today. Hi, Facebook. We're over on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. YouTube, we're almost up to 1,000. If you're over on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe. And then we're over on Twitter today. Hi, Twitter.
At a lower court first before we can evaluate whether or not the court follows Idaho state constitutional law. So that also too has an enormous impact publicly on the trial going forward, Jennifer, as to whether or not the gag order is going to stand. But I've been talking with a lot of friends of mine in the legal community, and there is this belief, this notion that they have that the gag order has stood up until this point, and it is going to stand going forward.
I really feel it will.
I agree. And I think we're already seeing it. These hearings aren't going to be live streamed. That tells me he's conservative. He's sealed the witnesses that spoke at the grand jury
today, you guys.
This speaks to me as far as his general conservative nature concerning protecting this case, protecting the facts, protecting the witnesses.
Where's everybody
and because
at
of that,
today?
I think he will continue to keep.
I'm in Central Florida. It's like kind of overcast and about 80 degrees.
That order in place. And recall too, the media asked for an extension, a continuance, I should say, a continuance. And he said, no, we're having the hearing the 22nd and it's not going to change. So I think that also tells me that he's read the positions on both sides. He's looked at the legal ramifications as well as the case law and the law. And unless they say something that's completely different than their briefs, I think he's going to keep it intact.
The time is now 9:02 Pacific time, 12:02 Eastern time. Of course, the arraignment scheduled for this half hour. So let's go over some of the tweets from Bryan Ensign before we do. As a reminder here, I know that Bryan Kohberger's name is going to be all over the place, and people are going to dissect every little bit of today pertaining to the suspect who is accused of committing these heinous crimes. But as a reminder, this always comes back to the victims, the 4 victims in this case. And let's please not forget who those victims are and how much that they were loved.
Is I think that the defendant is going to make the pronouncement himself. In my mind, he's doing exactly what you said, but in reality, I think that Ann Taylor.
I want to pop over here and see what Law and Crime is saying, you guys.
And I'm going to go with 99.999%. He's going not guilty on all counts.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I can see that you're a betting.
Does anybody believe he's going to plead guilty? Oh, I do not think that.
In here, leaving a little bit of doubt. So, Ron Zambrano, let me go back to you. This is actually a very serious occasion because they're going to have a number of things happening in court today. They'll be discussing the gag order. They'll be discussing discovery. And there have been some, shall we say, hiccups, says the defense, on behalf of the state giving them discovery. But that's also normal at this stage. Give us the posturing that goes on before an indictment and right after an indictment.
So a lot of what happens before the indictment it's kind of you're trying to just fulfill your duty so that later on there's no arguments that something wasn't copacetic, that there's some type of due process issue. So, and anything that doesn't go 100% cleanly, there's going to be some wrinkles, and everybody kind of understands that. After the indictment, things kind of get more formal, and you kind of have to have your ducks in a row and T's crossed. But by then, the defense attorneys and prosecution have kind of been communicating already, and they should have a rapport in order to avoid anything that can become a real issue later.
And Bob, before I play some tape that we have, I have one more question to you. This likely
Which
is
one do you
a
guys
death
prefer? The
penalty
JD one
case.
or
There was
the
another
long
death
crime?
penalty counsel that was added last week. She may have do some
Nobody's
real estate,
talking
but she's also
today.
death penalty certified in the state of Idaho. What do you think is going through the prosecution at this point? And do you think they're going to mention that and the defense at this point, at this arraignment?
This arraignment, no. I mean, it's possible, though. I think that the prosecution is absolutely going to be seeking the death penalty in this matter.
You're going to
You know,
shoot
in
him in the
terms of the
face.
timing of them reinstituting the death by firing squad in Idaho, the timing seems you had two major cases that were happening. You had
No.
Vallow, and well, actually three Daybell, but they were Daybell and Vallow were originally.
If I had the death penalty on something, I don't know if I wouldn't mind being shot, because it just seems like it would happen really fast, and I worry, like with the drug, killing them intravenously, it goes wrong and you can have a lot of pain. At least shooting, they'll shoot you till you're dead.
It's supposed to be one trial that I've ever heard of in my lifetime that is killed via
That's
firing
graphic
squad.
thought, wasn't it?
Very, very interesting. Now, everyone wants to see Bryan Kohberger, although when I tweeted his picture in my social media, I was like, oh, I'm going to be watching that for
I
a
want
long
to
time.
know.
But the poor victims, if he is guilty.
I've heard he's lost a lot of weight. I want to see what he looks like. The psychologist in me, the BA and the psych soc wants to know his psychological makeup right now.
They're the last person, or he is the last person they saw, so we owe it to them. But let's watch him before he's actually arrested, when he's in the car with his father, shall I say, escaping Idaho, going to Pennsylvania. Well, that's something that'll be decided in the future.
And pulled you over for tailgating. Is this your car? Okay, cool. Where you headed?
Poor family.
Well, we come from WSU. What's WSU? That is fucking So we're okay. I'm having a hard time hearing you because of the traffic. So you're coming from Washington State University, and you're going where? Oh, okay. Yep. We're slightly punchy because we drive for hours. Hours, days. We drive. Almost a day. Okay. So what did you say about some SWAT team thing? Yeah, there was a mass shooting here. Where? Interesting. Well, it's horrifying because the university. Mm-hmm. So y'all work at the university there? Or? Actually, we work there. No.
I actually just got fired.
Okay. Yeah, I hadn't heard about that incident just yesterday, or? Oh, this happened about an hour and a half ago. Still wrapping up. I'm not sure the sushi is, but they did shoot somebody. Okay. And then you don't know about that actually. They were there. Interesting. Wow. Okay. So do me a favor, don't follow too close, okay? All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
Don't you think it's weird that he got stopped twice for following too close? I think that's so strange. And we know he's an asshole driver by following too close.
off the state. Please get your license and registration. When I stopped you when you were driving by me there, you're a little too close to back that semi. Continue in the back of this trailer.
Before I ask questions of my panel, I do want to keep our viewers advised that Mr. Kohberger is in court and the judge is on the bench. As soon as we get that footage that the judge will allow us to have, we will bring that to you.
Let's
We're
see
going to
it.
go to you first, Bob Mata. Okay, when I first saw this, I said, there's no way people getting pulled over for tailgating,
So what,
especially
he's
twice
filming
within a
them
very short
coming to
period of time.
court and
I
leaving?
was convinced the first officer was actually getting the DNA off the license. And since they know the first officer's DNA, that they could separate out the mixtures. But if that is not Brady material proving innocence, the prosecution seems to
So he's in court now, and we're just waiting to get the film from him
take a position
for the
that
first.
nothing gets given to
hearing.
the defense unless it proves innocence. Your thoughts?
Well, obviously, as a criminal defense attorney, that's absurd. We have a right to everything. Anything that they intend on using at trial, obviously, we have an absolute right to have. And frankly, I was having a rather long discussion about the gene.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm popping over to here because
And they are queuing it
is
up
saying
to
he's got
share.
some,
And let's see if we can bring this in. This is courtesy now
arriving.
of News Nation. So this is the video from the last half hour or so. Let's see if we can play this back and show you some of the sights and scenes from outside the Latah County Courthouse. I believe this is
We're
queued
gonna
up
see some
now.
live
And they're going to be
footage,
playing this
guys.
back here in just a second.
I want to remind you, this is Pair Woman Radio, and I'm Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs
let's
up,
see if
it
they-
helps me tremendously in the algorithm.
There is a sequence
so
of
appreciated.
exterior shots that they were just transmitting back to News Nation affiliated stations like ours. And so we'll try to come back to this if they do, in fact, play this video. In fact, what we'll do is we'll bring that up between Jennifer and I so that if it starts playing, we can kind of all see it here
I see
together.
you over on Facebook.
But a lot of family members, a lot of members of the media, all filing in, descending on Latah County, a relatively small town, rural town of Idaho. We have seen so many cases. I think back to Alex Murdaugh being in the low country of South Carolina, just so many places where these stories just take an enormous amount, these areas that receive an enormous amount of media attention, Jennifer. And now we're back in Latah County, Idaho.
Yeah, and
We're in
you know,
Idaho
it's
still.
very interesting. I know in my Twitter feed, I have a lot of individuals that are on there that are from here. They're from Pullman. They attend both of these universities. And those individuals say it is so eerie having him at the Latah County Jail.
Here is that video now, Jennifer, and we're going to see some of the folks. This is not live, folks. This is on a delay. This is some of the News Nation video that's being quite literally fed out to stations as we speak. So we're looking here at some of the raw, as we call it, B-roll that is coming in. We'll see some of the shots from outside the courthouse itself.
But didn't anyone get?
And this is
them
now
going in
used
the
by news
courthouse?
stations to prepare things for their afternoon newscast. All right, so here we see some family
Her
members.
sister with the baby.
Jennifer, who do you recognize here?
Well, I have to get on my glasses to answer that question.
Isn't
That is
Kaylee's
Kaylee's sister.
Yes,
And
the
her baby.
Gonzalez's
I
are
think.
here.
Yes, these are the Gonzalez's.
Gonzalez.
And his attorney.
Yep, there's the dad right back there.
And then you also see, well, both Gonzalez's are there. His attorney is in the background. And then, of
Dad
course,
is
the
in the very
sister.
back. I don't see the mom right now.
I would believe that is entirely
There's the mom
Gonzalez
That's
family.
the sister with the
and
baby.
friends.
1 minute ago,
That is
Brian
probably
Enton tweeting,
grandparents
Bryan Kohberger just entered the courtroom. Still no tweet from Brian signifying that Judge has entered the courtroom yet for the arraignment to officially begin.
Oh,
Once,
I was
of course,
thinking,
he
why
enters the
Bryan
courtroom, that will
Kohberger's
signify
tweeting
the
now?
beginning of
It's
the
Brian
arraignment.
Enton.
Again, the arraignment is going to be a formal presentation of the charges from the indictment. And then, of course, Bryan Kohberger is expected to enter a plea of not
So those are the
guilty.
Gonzalez's.
But we'll, of course, follow this in real time on Twitter. And then the moment that we're allowed to give you
There's the dad right
the
here.
video from inside and transmit the video from inside the courtroom, we will do so here.
He's
live.
really
This is
looking
so
around.
people,
This is not
making it up
live
the stairs and into the Latah County courtroom. This is believed to be in the last hour at some point. Again, this is courtesy of our friends at News Nation. Jennifer?
And you heard
News Nation.
JB Bryan describe that it's emotional already in that
I
courtroom.
really want to be
and
there
I would very much expect that.
for this case, and I think
This is really
if
difficult for the victim families.
Mr. Chad Daybell goes forth, I want to be there for his case too and bring it live to you guys.
And this is their first time being back in the presence and realizing now things are going to move forward.
Coming in, everybody, WFLA senior investigator Walt Buteau is sitting down here with us on stream. You're going to sit right over there, Walt. Yes, you can come sit down. The feed, folks, just ended. That was all the B-roll coming from the Latah County Courthouse. We'll get Walt in the saddle here and get him ready to go here in just a moment. Let's bring you back in with Jennifer Kaufman.
We're waiting. He's in court right now, you guys.
Bryan Enton tweeting out a moment ago, and we'll continue to read his tweets here aloud.
Once the hearing is over, we'll get the footage.
Let's see.
Oh, we're behind there.
And this is going absolutely as expected. It's just a
Those are the Gonzalez's.
And there's typically no fireworks and no.
Yeah. So again, this is video from January. We're going to get the video here shortly.
I want to know what he looks like.
How tense, Walt, can it be in that courtroom? When all of these months have passed? Everyone, your life is different now than what you had, of course.
It's like I would imagine life would be like before the murder and after the murder.
In January or November of last year. What's the tension in that courtroom? Of course, the court hearings in January, they might be seeing Bryan Kohberger
in the flesh for the first time.
For the first time. What do you make of that?
I tend to put myself in my role as a father with something like that. I would. It's a nightmare. And I've been, I think, in 3 different cases where those emotions boiled over and somebody actually tried to jump the defendant. That's the worst case scenario and the most dramatic scenario. But I think you will see a mix of family members trying to stare down the defendant, try to get him to look them in the eye. And I think that's one thing a reporter looks at. What did the defendant look at? Did the defendant make any attempt to look back at who was looking at him? And what are the family members looking at? And how do they react to each and every word? I think Jennifer said, this is theoretically going to be routine, but there's definitely nothing routine about it emotionally for those family members, because their lives, we will cover this case for as long as it takes, but it never ends for those victims' families ever. And that's why we look back at cases that are 10 years old and 15 years old, because you hear the word closure, and we discussed this with the Brian Laundrie case. There is no closure. I don't believe
such a thing in a murder case. This is Parawoman Radio, and I'm Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs up, it helps me out tremendously. A heart, a smile. We're on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter today. Hi, guys.
Closure, obviously, for anything like this, whether it's a verdict, a guilty verdict, the death, personal.
He's currently in court right now. They're filming it. Once it's over, we will get the footage.
Face to face in the stabbing, and for the family members, I just imagine them playing that over and over. Why did it happen? We still don't have a motive, correct?
Hello, Heather.
Right. Jennifer has been among many who have opined on what a potential motive could be. Much has been made about Bryan Kohberger's past and his upbringing.
I'm Amy from Parawoman Radio.
Exactly what the motive could be for entering a college residence in the middle of the night and stabbing 4 people to death and leaving.
Not even his college. Not his college either.
Right.
I mean, he traveled to a college.
Right. Passing by one of the surviving roommates.
Why did he pick Idaho, though? Idaho would be like the state that I wouldn't commit a crime in.
I mean, so really quickly, let me remind her, while we have this audience, while we're waiting for this video to come out, I know that there's more tweets to get to. Really quickly, he mentioned Brian Laundrie. Wednesday, we have another live stream, a pretty significant pretrial hearing in the Gabby Petito versus Brian Laundrie, the families, the lawsuit that exists between the two of them.
That's me.
That is going to be happening.
I find when I try to talk over it, you can't hear me, and so I pause it and then I forward it to where it is because I don't want to miss a thing. I want to see this footage. What we're waiting for is they're in court right now, and we're going to always be one court case behind because they're not doing it live. There's 3 today.
Okay, so look out. You can follow me on my various Kohberger. The maximum penalty
bouncing back
is
and
life
forth
in
from
prison or death. Kohberger says yes.
News Nation and JB, I mean, but they just had live footage that they showed. Well, it wasn't live; it was recorded of the Gonzalez's going into court.
That he understands the charges and the penalties. Kohberger is quote unquote standing silent. So the judge is entering not guilty pleas.
Thank you for
the prosecution now has 60 days to seek the death penalty. Kohberger's attorney is asking the judge to set the trial for October. He says it will take at least 4 weeks, maybe 6. So now they're getting into conversations. Jennifer, we talked about this earlier, whether or not
this is what's happening in court
relative
right now.
Trial window. October is much sooner than I was anticipating. Especially when you're talking about the mountain of digital evidence that they have to go through.
Wow.
So whether or not this actually happens, we'll find out what the judge says. Judge, by the way, if I say judge,
right? Wow. October.
Judge. So Judge.
I want to go
going
to
be.
I'll try
discussing that back and forth now with each legal team.
Should be like.
But I find this is the most interesting. Everything has been relatively procedural up until this point. But Kohberger is standing silent, so the judge entered not guilty pleas. So that leads us to believe that Kohberger himself did not say the words not guilty.
That was one of the 3 possibilities we read about, right? That if he did not say anything, the judge would enter that form. And you wonder, why wouldn't he say those words?
I'm going to try to go to it. I sleep in my, I have like a van type situation that it's a Jeep type situation. I sleep in it, and October would be an okay month, I think.
Is there a legal advantage of some sort? I doubt it, but why wouldn't he say not guilty?
That's undoubtedly, Jennifer, that seems to me like a very calculated decision to not, if again, we're reading this correctly, and we'll have the video here soon. So we'll be able to see for ourselves and hear for ourselves, but to not have the defendant in the case enter himself a plea of not guilty verbally, what does that signify to you?
To me, that signifies somebody who has made a decision to keep the control. He's not going to be forced to say the words not guilty. He's going to force somebody else to say it. So I'm not surprised. We knew this was a possibility, but we knew that not guilty would be the outcome today. A
bit of breaking news from News Nation's Bryan Enton in the courtroom. The Bryan Kohberger trial has a date set for October 2nd at 8:30 a.m.
All right, October 2nd. Let's see if I can get there.
But it can be delayed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that could be.
So again, bringing everybody back on screen here, right to a speedy trial. Those aren't just words. That actually is, of course, the law in this country. You have a right to a speedy trial. And so people who have been waiting,
it's got to be 2023.
It's almost, we're conditioned now to just think that there is going to be extended delays. But a pretty aggressive trial date set.
They must be ready.
October 2nd at 8:30 a.m. And people who are thinking, oh my goodness, that's so far from now.
8:30 to 10:30.
We've had some trials that get delayed for years. I'm telling you.
October 2nd, 2023.
For the sake of all the victims' families, that this does not get delayed years.
11:30 Eastern time.
Pretty aggressive trial date that has been set for October 2nd at 8:30 a.m. And a plea of not guilty has been entered by the presiding judge, and court has been adjourned, according to Bryan Enton. So it's all
Heather,
over.
I hope I'm here
after about,
you guys live.
Well, it started about, I think, 15 minutes ago. It didn't start at exactly 9 Pacific. It started about, let's see here.
I would have been filming all around that courthouse.
Okay, so it was about 12 minutes, roughly or so, 12 minutes. So we'll have 12 minutes of video to play back. So now the answer that I want to know is whether or not the judge and whether or not district court in Idaho will permit the pool camera feed to then distribute the video so that we can play that back. Jennifer, we were talking about the 2 additional motion hearings that are now set to take place and whether or not that is going to happen back to back. Based on the court being adjourned, that tells us that in all likelihood
his lawyer,
that we're now going to have to wait till 10 and 11 a.m. Pacific time for the second and third motions to be heard in court.
A lot of times,
and maybe we
people
get
let
the
their
video
lawyers do the
really
talking
soon as far
on
as the video.
cases. A lot of times they don't even say anything unless the judge specifically looks at you and talks to you.
From inside the courtroom of the arraignment.
Like he probably will ask.
Yeah, a little surprising. I would have expected him to go back to back because again, the arraignment is so short, you know, but he probably has a very calculated reason for doing that. Perhaps Bryan Kohberger will not be at his hearing. It'll be very interesting to see also the feed. If these hearings are allowed
Why
to
aren't
be
they
seen,
telling if
as
he's
far
there
as
or
we
not?
know they're going
That's
to
what I
be,
don't
but has
understand.
there been a change of heart? Have you heard anything about that, JB?
I have not, but I'm paying attention here. And so we have an alert system that is set up in at WFLA for breaking news alerts. Hold on, I'm getting a notice here.
Ooh.
Yeah, okay, so they are preparing now to distribute the feed, but that doesn't tell us anything about exactly when the feed will be available. They're just getting ready to transmit.
Is he there?
When, of course, the pool camera feed says it's time to transmit it. So that's where things stand. And so anything else here? Let's go back to Bryan Enton's Twitter and just make sure that we are crossing our T's, dotting our I's. And yeah, we have everything wrapped up here. Kohberger's attorney is asking the judge to set the trial for October and 4 to 6 week trial. Walt, what do you make of that?
They said 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. That was according to Kohberger's attorney, Ann Taylor.
It sounds a little short, doesn't it? For a quadruple murder.
I guess it depends on the number of witnesses.
I would bet it goes more towards 6. And I think jury selection is not going to take a standard amount of time.
Well, if you're a defense attorney, we just don't know what the evidence looks like. We don't know. And we don't know how many witnesses could be testifying at trial, how long that testimony could be.
And I think if there's especially strong evidence, which we don't know whether there is or not really yet, I don't think. We don't know if there's we don't have a murder weapon, right? We still don't have a murder weapon.
DNA has been.
He has court adjourned 5 minutes ago.
Cases, not necessarily a quadruple murder where the defense doesn't even put on a case. Where where they merely think, we're gonna win this on appeal, or we're gonna somehow win it on appeal. Let's not waste time in the courtroom. That I guess could shorten it, but I don't know, 6 weeks. To me, 6 weeks would make more sense than 4, but we'll find out, won't we?
I'm very curious. I'm texting right now Peter Tragos. I want to see.
I can't wrap my
he's going to be
around
trying to tell him that we're on now.
I really thought
also, JB, that's just the initial trial date. I would expect that to be continued multiple times.
Yeah.
And the length to be 4 to 6 weeks. I don't think there's a chance that that's what they're looking at. And I go back to the facts we do have. 51 terabytes. Thousands of photos. We're going to have video. The DNA alone.
Right.
How about just information on the cellular information and all those experts? I just think it'll be a while.
Oh, I think so too, Heather.
You can see that we have the latest guests coming in, and it's I believe we're going to have Peter Tragos, the lawyer that
he's
hopping on the Zoom call right now. I'm really just eager to get his perspective, and hopefully Peter, if you can hear me, I'm waiting for you to turn on your camera there, and hopefully you can hear us okay.
Which one do you guys prefer, News Nation or
the likelihood that this actually
one.
happens in October? I mean,
Unlikely,
I like this one.
I think.
Yeah. Oh, let's see.
I think
if Long
unlikely
Pine
is
does. Let me
probably
see.
a pretty good way of putting it. But I was looking at you, I was making eye contact with you because you and I know, because we have gone through court documents before.
Right.
We've gone through evidence dumps in the past. You and me both in respective cases. 51 terabytes. There are some people out there that megabytes, gigabytes, terabytes. It doesn't calculate in their brain.
How many pages? Any thoughts on pages?
Right. And I know that News Nation.
Although if it's terabytes, we're assuming correctly that
News
if it's
Nation
pictures,
isn't doing
it takes up more
anything.
space. Correct.
Well, video is really
right,
what's
right,
going to
so-
take up a lot of space.
Right.
It's got
How
something.
compressed
News
it is,
Nation has
where it's coming
missing
from,
Terra
its origin.
Calco.
But still, a lot of
That's what
information.
they're doing today.
51
Oh wait, you said long
terabytes
crime.
is
Oh, wait.
utterly massive.
Yeah, we
And,
were over on long
I know that
crime.
doesn't
Let me pop us over there really
compute
quick.
with a lot of.
They seem to be doing a lot of just. They have they're on break. Let's go over to the other one.
If you work in IT, 31 million pages.
No.
It's going to come down to video.
Yeah,
And
long crime is
I'm
on break
telling
right
you,
now.
man, if I'm going through,
We're waiting for the
if I'm an
footage.
attorney
The case was
and I just got a hard
adjourned,
drive
the
delivered
first
to my
one.
office or cloud access.
The first one was
The-
adjourned, and we're waiting for the footage. That's what Bryan Kohberger just tweeted. Like it was probably like 8-10 minutes ago.
51 terabytes. I might just take a moment to go
Bryan
into a corner,
updated.
crawl up into a little ball and cry for a minute because I'm now looking at the next, I don't know, year and a half of my life going
Nothing
through all
new
that.
on
I mean,
Bryan.
it's an enormous amount of data. And I said earlier, it would take an army to go through it. It would take an entire team.
Well, I think you would hire. It would.
Look at this. Can you believe Kohberger's attorney is asking the judge to set the trial for October, which it was October 2nd at 8:30 Central Time. She says it will take at least 4 weeks, maybe 6. They seem very confident to me. Very confident, which is a little worrisome.
Somebody, a clerk or
I'm looking here at this screen. I'm waiting for the feed to pop up. Similar to how we saw
He definitely is.
it
Hello,
get
Dallas.
re-queued, right? Similar how we saw the B-roll just
How
play
are you
back a short
today?
time ago. They're going to re-queue now the pool camera feed from inside the courtroom. And as that gets transmitted to stations across the country, we'll be able to share that with you here live on stream. So we're waiting for that. That is pretty much the next thing to happen here. In addition to the gag order hearing and then the motion to compel hearing. And the motion to compel, there's been a disagreement on evidence between prosecutors and the defense.
big surprise.
I used to be a legal secretary
that's
for
standard, folks.
a couple
as
years.
far as
I was burnt out on social work, so I did that. I loved it, but we never did anything like this.
hearings to dictate
We
whether
did have
or
a
not
case though once where a girl pretended to be a boy, kind of like what was that one that movie where the girl pretended to be a boy? It was actually like that, she was older and she targeted a younger girl.
Who gets evidence for Peter to hop back on stream. Yari says hashtag KJ, is
Good,
it possible for
I'm
one
glad.
person to go through 1 terabyte? Sure. Oh yeah. 1
I
terabyte.
went through a really dark period this last month, but I have crawled out of it. I'm eating and drinking healthy stuff, and I'm feeling so much better, and I'm really feeling like I'm going to start doing my lives again.
And it depends.
Well, obviously, I'm doing a live right now, huh? This is Parawoman Radio, and I am Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs up. We are watching the Bryan Kohberger case. He's got 3 trials today. 1 already happened. We're waiting for the footage. We're always going to be behind one trial, one case, because they're not letting us see it live, but they're letting us see replays of it, and we're waiting. And if you could
So
give this
one
live a
tip-
thumbs up, it helps me tremendously. It helps me dance out into the algorithm and bring more people back to the party. I'm almost up to 1,000 and monetized on YouTube. I am monetized on Facebook. So I'm so excited to be here with you guys.
Terabyte of. You have this right. This is now a
Here we go, you
replay.
guys.
This is the pool camera footage being transmitted out to stations across the country. So they have queued it up. They're about to play it, and we're going to hear it here live on stream for the first time. But again, this is a replay from approximately
Here we go,
30
Heather.
minutes ago. So what they're doing now is they're beginning on this first frame.
I'm excited.
They are alerting stations across the country to get ready to receive this video. This is how pool camera situations work. It's queued up. It's kind of ready to go. And then they will hit play once they get the green light. During this, what we're going to do is Walt and I and guests will remain
I know,
quiet.
Heather. When
We
I
will
say I'm
listen in. I'll
excited,
try to
I'm
boost up the
sad
audio as
about
much
it.
as
I get
possible
it.
here in the stream center so we could hear as much as possible. And then afterwards, we're going
Totally
to break
get it.
down some of your observations, some of your questions. We'll be looking for hashtag HeyJB,
Such a Gen
hashtag
X too.
HeyWalt in the
Totally
YouTube
get it,
comment
Heather.
section.
I
So
am
the
a
video
Gen
now
X.
is being queued up. They've now gone to the closed door. So what we're going to see
I want to
is
see
Idaho murder
him.
suspect Bryan Kohberger enter the courtroom. We're going to see Judge read out the indictment. Let's bring up audio.
Here we go. Come on, baby. I heard he lost a lot of weight. My psychology degree is very interested in his weight, his food issues. He says he has no psychological issues, but he used to be a drug addict and he has eating disorder.
And we're waiting
We
for,
know those are two
again,
right there.
the pool camera team. They are alerting all stations.
We're all like on pins and needles. We're over on Facebook. Hi, Facebook. We're over on Twitter. Hi, Twitter. And we're over on YouTube. Hi, YouTube.
We also have a backup feed in the event that this one goes out. But again, this is the indictment for those of you
We're
just joining
waiting.
us. The
We're about
indictment
to see him walk through the door.
of
That's what we're
Bryan
waiting for.
Kohberger, the suspect, the lone suspect in the murders of 4 University of Idaho students in November of last year. He is facing 4 first-degree murder charges as well as a charge of burglary as well.
I just realized your name, Heather. Heather does it like, oh, no, other Kim. Kin. I don't know what
The
that
silence we're experiencing now as we wait for the video.
There it is.
There you
Listen
go.
in.
Okay.
You gotta cough right when it happens. He's a little thinner. He's definitely thinner.
All rise. Thanks very much. Please be seated.
Right on then.
Good morning, everybody.
I think my first, no, that was AOL. I don't remember what my first Facebook was. Oh, I think it was Haunted Hillsdale, actually. I used to do a paranormal group. Crazy eyes.
We have some people on Zoom here too, so we're going to hide it. Okay, let's get on the record, please. Thank you. Okay, we
wish
are
they'd
now
show
on
the
the
people out
record in State of Idaho versus Bryan C. Kohberger, CR 29222803. Mr. Kohberger is in the courtroom along with his attorney, Ms. Taylor.
He's a lot thinner.
Also, part of the team is Jay Ronston and
You can see the
Elisa
bones in his
Massa,
face.
who is participating by Zoom, I The state is represented by Mr. Thompson, Latah County Prosecutor's Office, or Prosecuting Attorney. Ms. Jennings is of that office too, Latah County Prosecutor's Office. Also, part of that team is Ingrid Beatty and Jeff Nye, both from the Idaho Attorney General's Office. I'm John Judge. If you don't know me, I'm the Latah County District Judge, and I'll be presiding over this case. So, Mr. Kohberger, you've already heard a lot of what I'm going to tell you at your initial appearance, but I'll repeat it to you because it's important, and I want to remind you of these issues. So I'll briefly cover your rights, the charges against you, and the maximum penalties if you are found guilty or if you plead guilty. So I'm going to start with the rights. You have a constitutional right to have an attorney represent you throughout these proceedings. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, then one is appointed at public expense. Ms. Taylor and her team have already been appointed, so that's taken care of. You have a right to a speedy and public jury trial where the state would be required to prove every element of each charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. At that trial, you would have the right to cross-examine the witnesses called against you. That means to see, hear, and question them, to call witnesses to testify for you, and if you choose to testify in your own defense. But you're not required to testify because you also have the right of silence. That right is protected under the Idaho and federal constitutions, so you can remain silent throughout these court proceedings, and that can't be held against you. What you do need to remember, though, is that anything you do say, other than to your lawyers, could be used against you in a later court proceeding. You understand that?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you. You also have a right to appeal any final decision of the court. In order to exercise that right, you need to file a notice of appeal within 42 days of that final decision, or that right is waived. Also, if you are not a United States citizen, any finding of guilt in this state could have adverse consequences to your legal status. Do you understand these rights?
Yes.
Any questions about the rights?
No.
See, he is speaking when the judge is speaking to him.
So let's go to the indictment. You have a copy of the indictment in front of you?
Yes.
Thank you. And
That would be weird if the
your name there, is that
lawyer
your
just answered.
correctly spelled complete name?
Yes, it is.
Is that the correct birth date underneath your name?
Yes.
Are those the correct?
He's something
last four
else
digits
is
of your
what he
social
is.
security number?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to read you.
There's a part of
the
him that loves
charges
it.
on the indictment, starting with count 1, burglary. That is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-1401 and 1403. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did unlawfully enter a residence located at 1122 King Road, Moscow, with the intent to commit the felony crime of murder. Count 2, murder in the first degree. That is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. This alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Madison Mogan, a human being,
Look at him
by
shift.
stabbing Madison Mogan, from which she died.
I believe Maddie was the target.
Count 3, murder in the first degree, a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003.
I'll say why I think Maddie was the target when they're
This
done.
alleges that you, on or about November 13, 2022, in Latah County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Kayla Gonzalez, a human being, by stabbing Kayla Gonzalez,
No
from which
shift.
she died. Count 4, murder in the first
His
degree.
mouth did.
That's a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004. Alleging that you,
No,
on or
it's
about
Maddie.
November 13, 2022, in Lake County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation, and with malice aforethought, kill and murder Zaina Kernodle.
Oh, he grinded his teeth there again.
This is hard. I'm sorry. Zaina
Oh, Kayla. Okay, I
Zaina
got you, Heather.
Kernodle, a human being, by stabbing Zaina Kernodle, from
I
which she
didn't
died.
understand.
Count 5, murder in the first degree. This is a felony under Idaho Code Section 18-4001, 4002, 4003, and 4004.
So he shifted with Maddie. He grinded his
This
teeth
alleges
with
that you, on
Kaylee
or about November 13,
and
2022, in Lake County, state of Idaho, did willfully, unlawfully, deliberately, with premeditation,
He's moving a lot
and
with
malice
the.
aforethought, kill and murder Ethan Chapin,
He's moving
a
a lot
human
with that
being,
one.
by stabbing Ethan Chapin, from which he died. This is signed on May 16, 2023, by the presiding grand juror. So now I'm going to go to the maximum penalties of each charge, starting with count 1, burglary, minimum 1 year, up to 10 years in imprisonment.
What did he
Fine of up to
steal?
$50,000, or both fine and imprisonment. Restitution for the victim's economic losses resulting from the crime.
Glasses?
For counts 2, 3, 4, and 5, murder in the first degree, maximum penalties, life in prison, or the death penalty. Fine of up to $50,000, for both fine and life in prison, or the death penalty.
But they said a burglary.
Restitution for the victim's economic
Oh.
losses resulting from the crime. Also, additional fine of up to $5,000 to be paid directly to the victim's families. If you are found guilty or plead guilty on each charge, and the maximum sentences are imposed consecutively, that means one right after the other, you could be facing 10 years in prison, followed by 4 consecutive life sentences or death penalties, fines of up to $200,000 and $20,000 to be paid directly to the families, with any restitution resulting from crimes.
Ah, I gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought a burglary meant you had to have taken something. I misunderstood.
Do you understand the charge in count 1? Yes. Do you understand the maximum penalty?
Because
yes.
No. Okay,
Do
never
you
mind.
understand the charge in count 2, murder in the first degree? Yes. Do you understand the maximum penalty? Yes. Do you understand the charge in count 3, murder in the first degree?
Yeah, I know he took
Do you
4
understand the
lives.
maximum
I'm just saying
Yes.
that I
Do you
thought you had to
understand the
literally
charge
take
in
something
count
from the
4,
house for it to
murder
be a
in the first
burglary.
degree?
I know he
Yes.
broke in and
Do you
committed more
understand
than
the
just
maximum
that.
penalty? Yes. Do you understand the charge in count 5? Murder in
Like,
the
I would have
first
thought it
degree?
was just a breaking and
Do
entering
you understand the maximum
and
penalty?
murdering,
Yes.
not breaking, entering,
Ms.
burglary,
Taylor,
murdering.
is Mr. Kohberger prepared to plead to these charges?
We will be standing silent.
Like I said, I was a
Mr. Kohberger is standing
assistant to a
silent.
lawyer for a
I'm
year,
going to
but we
enter
didn't have
not guilty
all of
pleas
this.
on each charge. Counts 1, 2,
No, it was a
3,
year and a
4,
half.
and 5. Now, at this juncture, the state has 60 days to give notice.
Yeah, right. I think that's so disrespectful. Lori Vallow did the same thing.
Mr. Kohberger has a constitutional and statutory right to a speedy trial. So let's start with you, Ms. Taylor, and then Mr. Thompson to discuss scheduling.
October
Your Honor, we'd
2nd.
ask the court to set this trial at the very outside of the
Crazy
state trial,
town.
right? We're not prepared to do anything but ask the court to do that today.
Okay.
Oh,
Have we counted out when that will be? November?
I have not counted it out, Your Honor, but I believe that we can make out November 22nd is when it's run. Maybe November.
November. I thought they said
But the court
October.
set it for an October trial.
Oh, okay.
How long do you think it'll take to try the case?
My best guess is it would take at least 4 weeks.
Look at him. Look at her.
So you'd like me to set this for a 6-week trial?
At this point, I would, Your Honor.
Murders 4 people, and it's a 4 to 6 week trial in October. Not even a year from when it was committed.
So I will have to
That's crazy town.
get rid of some of the other 3 trials I have, but this is more critical and more important. So, Mr. Thompson, what's your?
Those trial dates are workable to the state judge.
Thank you.
Is that the lead prosecutor? I don't think I've ever looked at the lead I've only seen his lawyer. I've only looked at his lawyer. So that's the lead prosecutor with the big beard. It is. Yeah, okay, he is. Okay.
About October 2nd.
I like to look them up and see who they are.
Yes, sir.
Okay, for 6 weeks.
Yes, sir.
Anything else we need to address with the Ms. Taylor?
Not with regard to the trial setting, no.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Thompson?
Nothing to say at this time, no.
All right. So with that, by the way, I do want to
I know, it's crazy.
let everybody know, if they don't already know this, that once the grand jury issued the indictment, preliminary hearing scheduled to start on June 26th was no longer needed and was vacated.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Confused about that. So I thank counsel and the media and the public for your attention and respect. So we are.
Okay, so the June is canceled, and we've got 2 more after this that we'll see as it gets completed. Why is he leaving the court? If he's got 2 more, why is he leaving? You think he's going to be found guilty, Ray? He seems pretty confident.
Bryan Kohberger electing to stand silent, and the judge entering a plea of not guilty on the 5 charges, 4 for first-degree murder, and an additional charge for burglary as well. JB Buno, WFLA senior investigator Walt Buteau here with you live in the WFLA Now stream center. We're really going to hone in now on your reaction, folks, your comments. We use our hashtag system here in the stream center. So if you use hashtag HeyWalt, hashtag HeyJB, I think Jennifer Coffindaffer might still be hanging around.
I want to remind you, this is Pair Woman Radio, and I'm Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. If you would consider liking and joining my channel. We're over on Facebook. Hi, channel. Over there on Facebook. And we're over on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. We're almost up to 1,000 on YouTube monetized. We're monetized on Facebook. And hi, Twitter.
he's invited to pop
He
back
had
on
one trial, and we're waiting for the next two. He got up and left. I don't know why.
whenever she'd like. I see her in the corner of my screen as well. But either any of the hashtags on your screen, and we can bring up your questions, your comments. Well, I want to give you the opportunity to react here first. I have a couple of things to point out as well. But let's start with you.
Well, I'll tell you, I don't know if confidence is the right word, but he definitely answered the judge's questions. And you don't always hear that, believe it or not. You don't always hear that from defendants. There's sometimes at least a hint of shame might not be the right word, but in his case, he answered every question very directly, full voiced, spoke up, except when it came to the plea, when he remained silent, and we knew he had remained silent for the plea, and that the judge had to enter the not guilty plea for him. So it sort of, I guess, maybe surprised me that he was sort of so grateful for my listeners and forthcoming and spoke up so much when he was asked those other questions. What did you think?
The word that I'm going to use is very present.
Yes.
Alert.
Yeah.
And
like he was asking like he was being asked questions about, what'd you do last night?
Right.
Or, he was being asked,
but he made made clear a guy. He was enunciating his responses. And I was thinking back during over the course of us watching this, I was thinking, my goodness, he is very coherent. And I think back to some of the trials, and our audience members on WFLA Now in our comment section know what I'm talking about when we're talking about some cases like Darrell Brooks, which was all over the place.
If I was
innocent, chaos at
I
every
would
turn.
be the one to enter that plea for sure.
Really? Talking, of course, about Alex Murdaugh, where it was, there was points where he was, just crying. He was just covered in tears as far as emotion. I think back to Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, where there was smirks and twitches. And I know that we're really early on in this process, but this was as straightforward, direct, coherent, and concise of responses as you'll hear from a defendant.
I saw one of the first January 6th Bay Area defendants, one of the first Bay Area defendants from January 6th during a federal hearing where cameras
are waiting. This is why I think it's Madison. This is Parawoman Radio, by the way, and I'm Amy. This is why I think it was Maddie. All right. I watched Maddie with her boyfriend, and if you look at her boyfriend is a bit of a nerd. And I think Bryan thought, I have a chance. And he didn't have a chance, but that's why I think it's Maddie. It's something so small and tiny that I picked up. I could be wrong, but I think I'm right about that.
Aren't allowed in it. As the judge was reading the charges against him, actually, I should say, put his head on the table, just went thump like that in a federal courtroom.
Did he hurt himself?
No, he just was sort of like, if I was interpreting it, it was sort of, what did I do? And that, of course, was not nearly as serious as this. But yeah, this guy was definitely very straightforward. Like you said, very present.
Yeah, he was very present.
The only reason maybe we're surprised by that is because we knew ahead of time he did not enter a plea. And I think Jennifer makes a good point. Was that about control? I'm controlling this. You're not controlling this. I'll answer your questions, but you're not controlling.
He's like, this is so above me. This is so ridiculous that I'm not even going to speak. And when I do, I'm not going to be polite.
For my plea, but at the end of the day, the judge controlled.
He wasn't rude, but he was I'm here.
Did you observe arrogance? Is that what you're saying?
A little bit. I observed a little bit.
I would say more confidence than arrogance.
Okay.
And there's a difference. Just more of I sort of expected
it's arrogance. It's not confidence.
Soft-spoken, maybe, as opposed.
No, he enunciated very clearly his responses.
Yes.
And it almost reminded me of some of the traffic stop videos that we had seen where he was he appeared to be just making sure that he was very clear in what he was saying. And
I agree.
There's going to be this is a replay, by the way. This is actually the satellite coordinates for the feed itself, but they are playing it back a second time for news stations that missed it the first time. This is just,
and his attorney sort of smiled when she came in. He looks about the same, doesn't he? To you, does he look the same that he did?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Does he look the same that he did? He does to me.
Oh, yeah, Kohberger.
A little bit thinner.
No, he looks very, very similar. Here he is rising for Judge
one.
John Judge. Our comment section was lighting
I'll
up
do a video
about
and compare it.
Judge, and people that have watched me before know that the very last thing I ever do is ignore people
Do you guys think he
in the
looks
comment
thinner?
section
I
and
think
their
he looks thinner.
observations. And
But
as
I
far
am
as the
someone who grew
pronunciation
up
of
in
the names,
a
our
household
comment
where the way you looked meant everything, and so I try to get over it. I try not to get past it. It's one of the things I work on, but I do notice looks quite a bit, and I feel he is thinner.
section was lighting up about the later.
It would have been nice to see the pause when he said, "This is
Let me hold on. Let me try one more feed. Let me make sure. Let me just try some wizardry here for a
Let's see
second.
what News
and see
Nation
if
is saying. Let
we
me
can bring
hop
up
over there.
any audio from so
Long
they're feeding
time, I
back
mean.
the second camera angle without
They're on break
audio.
again.
So yes, that moment where Judge and people will be able to sync this up later, but the moment where he said, "I'm sorry, this is hard. Let's not."
And the maximum sentences are imposed consecutively. That means one right after the other. You could be facing 10 years in prison, followed by 4.
This is what
consecutive
Long
life
Crime is doing.
sentences
They're
or
just
death
replaying
penalty.
it.
Fines of up to $200,000 and $20,000 to be paid directly to the families with any restitution.
I have a couple of the names there. This is his
This
first
nation-
time
or Long Crime is
in the
really,
courtroom for this particular case. Let's not forget this is
disappointing to
this has been elevated now to district court. So this is the first time he said, "I'm going to be the one presiding over the case," but this is the first time that he has been, as
You
I
like
understand
News
it,
Nation
in the
better
courtroom
when they
with
go
Bryan
to the live
Kohberger and this case.
for the
And
next
also
one. I'll
too,
pop
if
over
he
there
was
for
getting
you.
emotional, if he was getting caught
there's
up in
the
this,
judge.
I
Right.
wonder if people are going to be dissecting
He's a
that
handsome older
element. I
man.
know that I'm
Like his
thinking
hair.
of Peter Tragos, Emily
Silver
Baker,
fox.
some of the great lawyers
Not really.
online
Well,
that
kinda.
dissect
Not ugly.
every
God, there I
little
am.
development,
See,
big,
I can't help it.
small, tiny, in a courtroom and try to make sense of it. But whether or not him pausing and mispronouncing the names tells us anything about where this goes from here. Jennifer, let's bring you in. What did you make of Bryan Kohberger's arraignment, having watched it for the first time?
Well, I think the interesting thing is the contrast it with the other time we saw him in court, where he says not
Let's
guilty,
see what Bryan
and where he,
he's
enters
updating
his
anything.
plea,
Let's see.
and where before that, at least according to his attorney, he said he is going to prove his innocence or exonerate himself, I think were the words. So I just find it a bit of a contrast.
He's just
this
showing
move.
that the video, the first one was live. So
It's an option for Bryan Kohberger, and he chose that particular option. I want to read people who are looking for the lawyer, Peter Tragos. He tried to get on stream. He said that he had some mind-blowing technical difficulties. He offers his apologies, but I said, "Hey man, text me some notes and I'll read kind of what you have to say." And this is from Peter, the lawyer. He'll be live later. He says, October trial date indicates he's not waiving speedy trial at this point. Standing silent is effectively the same thing as entering a not guilty plea, but things can be read into that. And then 60 days to notify for the death penalty. And I expect Peter Tragos expects, again, this is his analysis, expects the state to go for the death penalty.
I know they have 60 days,
and so
but I wonder if they'll do
that
it like
has to be,
immediately,
that
or
notice
we'll
has to
wait
be
the
served
60 days.
within 60 days, that is in fact their intent. And I just want to read, just say this one thing before we go into some of the comments here. As we look here at some of the secondary camera angles, looks like the pool camera operator is zooming in on something.
See if there's
here.
any other.
I just really want to point out that if Judge was emotional in reading the names, people might read something into that, but people are human. They make mistakes. I've mispronounced names on my stream, and I feel terrible when I do it.
He'll probably
I feel
say it
absolutely
right
terrible.
the next time.
And he might go back to his office now, his chambers, and get just mountains of hate mail saying, "How dare you mispronounce some of these names?" But people are human. Please remember that mistakes happen, and it's not meant with any disrespect. It likely, in all likelihood, it was just human error, and that can happen. And I know that might have been, look, it's the family members in the courtroom. Maybe they'll be asked as to whether or not that was upsetting to them, but mistakes happen in courtrooms all the time. And
He'll correct himself, I'm sure.
if maybe he
not
was
holding it against
emotionally
them.
caught up in the moment.
Mispronunciations of names happen in courtrooms all the time.
Oh, frequently.
We will go into a hearing and think we have the pronunciation correct. A judge says it differently. A prosecutor says it differently. Then we're forced to call whoever we can call and say which is the correct way. So yeah, it does happen. I get how people would be upset about it, but yeah, you're right. The judge is human.
As we're
People are
looking in here
upset
on a
about
zoomed
that.
in
People
shot,
get upset about
no
too
shaving
much.
cuts of note, no look, I'll let our audience, if there's any observations that people want to make as to Bryan Kohberger's appearance, his
Right? If
demeanor,
people are
his
upset about that, geez,
mannerisms. This is now,
give
we're
a
officially
freaking
opening up,
crap.
starting now. Hashtag KJB, hashtag
How I feel
KWalt,
about
hashtag
that.
KJennifer. We're just going to spend the next few minutes going through, really maybe even more than the next few minutes, going over as many of your social media comments as possible, because we want to interactively talk with you here, answer your questions about where this goes from here. What we want to do as well is garner your reaction. And let's not forget, folks, that that's probably started right around now. I think is it the gag order, Jennifer? The motion on the gag order is happening as we speak.
Is it? I
Yes,
hope so.
should be.
And let's see if Bryan Enton is back in court. I'll just kind of refresh this
You
really
didn't say
quickly.
anything a minute ago.
He has not indicated as such. He might have indicated as much on News Nation. Let's go to the comments. We're going to really focus in on YouTube Live. We'll bounce to TikTok and maybe Twitter as
go live
well. But
on
let's
TikTok yet.
let's
Over
go
there.
to. This is what I'm talking about. Some of the micro observations. Caitlin says he was swallowing and clenching a lot.
You
People
know,
are gonna,
I have a tweet. Somebody tweeted at me, and
He
you
was
noticed it too on the
grinding his
tight shot.
teeth.
By the way, this type of stuff, I don't know. It's a little bit too much for me sometimes.
you.
But
Oh, is that what they're
because-
doing over?
But I get it. But on the tight shot, and you didn't
The one
notice
that he's
his
dating?
like his jaw popped a little bit, and this person wrote, "Will anyone?" No, she wrote, "I noticed he was clenching his jaw." I don't know what that means.
That wouldn't be-
Perhaps Jennifer knows what that means from a profiling point of view. I don't know what that means.
I mean, I don't think we can make too much of really any of
Yeah.
it because we haven't watched him before. Maybe
Right.
he uses his jaw a lot.
Yeah, I guess we would have to see his. Let's
I don't
see what
think
he
we can
did in
make
the
too much of it. Of
first
course,
one.
everybody's
Oh.
going to be dissecting his
Yeah.
demeanor. I think you hit it on the head. Well, he's certainly confident. And again, I 100% believe that was a control move.
ageless beauty.
Jennifer, and on that point, when you say a control thing, what do you mean by that? I think I
Well,
know what you
Heather thought
mean,
he
but
looked angry, too.
what do you mean by the control by not saying not guilty
Pissed
or
was
guilty?
the word I think
Not
Heather
saying
said.
not guilty. There isn't anyone that's going to force him into stating anything at this point. Yes, he has to acknowledge yes, no, when he's asked a direct question, but he wasn't going to make those statements. He was going to let the judge make it for him.
Does that
And,
does that
that's super telling.
does that go with anything else? Do you think? Does that mean anything bigger than that as
Oh,
far as
yeah.
control of a because
Situation.
murder in many ways is about control? Is that something we would look at as well, or compare it to, or no?
That's how I see it. I see him
That's
being
what I thought.
controlling in
Yeah, I
every
think that's how
aspect
everybody's
that
gonna
I've
see
seen
it.
when I've seen him on the videos. You know, remember when he got pulled over at one of the car stops, his father tries to answer a question of the officer, and he puts his hand, you know, and says, "Dad, you don't know." That was very telling to me. I mean, where he's even trying to manipulate his father and his responses. And
What's
that's
his
supposed to
birth
be
sign? Does
somebody
anyone
who's
know?
in authority.
Right.
I also find it interesting,
What his birthday is?
you know, could this mean there is a plea in the future? That's the only other thing I could see. But really, it was the same outcome, and he knew it would be the same outcome whether he said something or whether he didn't. In other words, whether he said not guilty or didn't.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
what
he's a
Mandy is
Scorpio.
saying here is wondering, is there a power play behind not saying the words not guilty? I think is what that is meant to say. And so people are going to read into this, but semantics, if we just focus on semantics for a second, it's a not guilty plea one way or the other. Maybe he didn't want to say the words not guilty, or maybe he was advised by counsel to not say the
Maybe.
words not guilty. Let's not forget that as well.
It reminds me of the no contest plea, because a no contest plea is you're still guilty, and the judge will tell you that after you plea nolo, you're still guilty. And I've always wondered, why do you plead no? I'm sure there's a legal way. I think it's been described to me before,
Does
but it's
long
still
crime know
sort of like
something that we don't?
yeah,
That
sure, I made a
they're
plea deal. I'm guilty, but you know what? I'm saying no
that
contest.
they have Johnny Depp's lawyer on it? Is there
Instead, no,
not?
you're
It's
still
not
guilty.
going to happen right away. Maybe.
You're right. Maybe it is.
Hashtag KJB, longer hair. That's it. And to tell you the truth, Reese Baum, I thought I was thinking the same thing. Maybe his hair is a little bit longer, and that's just him being a little bit longer between haircuts. You know, we've seen inmates.
His hair was done. Let's look for his first court appearance. Okay, see. Oh wait, that's okay. I am going to show you. This is his first. I'm showing you it. No, I'm not. Hold on a second. Okay, so this is him. Right there. This is him in his first appearance, and you can't see his hair is definitely longer in the second, but you can't see.
You know, again, they may have had to go back.
Bone structure in his face like you could on this last appearance. Can't get him. They had him, I think, walking in too. Let's see. No, this one didn't show his walking in. Right there. Oh, maybe it was the. You know what I think really,
in this day and age,
I'm thinking is making him look bigger is
because of the limited
see, look
information.
he looks bigger here to me. Am I reading into it too much? Do you guys think he looks bigger or smaller or the same?
Court.
Yeah,
on a 30-minute delay in October.
A silver fox.
No, that's not how this works. Based on our understanding of Idaho court policy, that particular hearing or each individual court event, if you will, cannot be distributed until that hearing has concluded. So if I'm reading into this correctly, that would mean that either the entire day's events can be streamed and distributed after 5 o'clock, after they adjourn for the day, or maybe, and us in the media, we have to do our part in asking these questions.
Body vest?
But will the judge allow us on lunch break to transmit the first half of the day, and then
this is what's on Bryan's tab? He keeps showing him walking in the loop. So look at him. What do you guys think? Does he have on a vest? I don't. If he does, he's definitely. No, he doesn't have a vest on. Does he? He might.
In
you think he's going to get the firing
reason being
spot?
is because there have been holdups in several states regarding the chemicals, the means necessary to do lethal injection. That there has been some difficulties in obtaining the means to carry out lethal injection. So giving the state the other option of a firing squad.
Rather the firing squad. It sounds
that's
violent.
Reality right now in Idaho. Really quickly, see Glenn hashtags for myself and Jennifer. I'm going to go to you because this one has a hashtag for you. Might standing silent indicate willingness to accept a plea deal?
Oh, good question.
Well, that's what I was alluding to earlier. I think it is a control deal unless this is alluding to that. it's a possibility. I think
Ooh,
if
maybe
the
that is his
state
way of
moves,
saying, give me a plea
to
deal.
notice the court to put the death penalty on the table, which I think they will. I think, it's a whole different conversation. And he's
Maybe
willing
that's
to
why
do
they
that
said
as well.
October, because
This
October
question
seems
from
like a
Nicole,
fairy
very
tale.
interesting.
Seems like
Hashtag
something that's
KJB.
not
I think
gonna
he
happen.
wanted to hear someone else say that he is not guilty. And an interesting
'Cause that's
way
not
of
even a
thinking
full
about
year
there was a
since the
calculated
murders, you
decision
guys.
behind
4
standing
murders
silent, and why
in not
someone
even a
might
year.
Again, LawTube. I know that some of the great names on LawTube are going to be analyzing this for hours or days.
Yeah, I can't
but
wait.
the decision itself to not say the words "not guilty" and perhaps wanting to hear someone else, whether it's your legal representation,
I
your
would love
attorney
to
saying
find
it, or the judge
a lawyer to
who's the
come on
most
Para Women
authoritative figure
Radio,
in the room
a female
saying the
lawyer.
words "not guilty." Is there a mental sort of component?
Interesting thought.
I'm not
and
sure.
talk about
Who used to work
control.
with the female
I mean, you're
lawyer?
making the
Wonder
judge say
what
you're not
she is
guilty.
doing these days.
Folks, we're going to be following along here too. I'm trying to get an update
I can't remember her name.
about. Oh, I want to read this. This is interesting from Brian Enton. Can't stop thinking about Olivia's baby in court. The message that it sent. That's just a very honest. That's why I like working with Brian. Is Brian's not he's gonna share his observations in addition to stating the fact of record. But a statement from Kaylee Gonzalez's family just coming in and coming into Brian Enton's Twitter, and I'll read it as, quote, "The family would like to thank everyone for continuing to follow this case and keep the memories of Kaylee, Maddie, Thana, and Ethan alive."
This was the lawyer I worked for. He passed away in 21.
To a grand jury and came back with an indictment. At the same time, we are disappointed that the judicial process has not been more efficient in addressing the gag order. This is just the beginning of a long journey for all the families, and we are thankful for your continued support and coverage. The Gonzalez family, Jennifer, without question, has been the most vocal throughout this process. And you can see there, using the word disappointed to state that things have been, in their words, inefficient as far as the gag order. What do you make of the Gonzalez's family issuing a statement? Really, I mean, the immediacy after the arraignment concluded.
Well, I think the Goncalves family is grieving like all the families, and they are grieving in their own way. I've thought a lot about the Goncalveses. None of us, unless we've been in their shoes, know how we would act. And, I have a lot of empathy for this family. Their daughter, Kaylee, strikes a chord with me. I think I have a daughter who is much like her. And I can really relate to the anger and frustration that they've likely felt through this process. And I know they want to speak. But from my view as a former agent, I think this really helps the case from the prosecution standpoint as well. I think it's fair to the defendant. And I really
everyone's
going
to
to
be analyzing
the best answer, but it's the hardest answer for the victim.
I'm looking here for any updates whatsoever, folks, on the gag order, and I'm looking here if any of those motions now, because the time is now 1:18 Eastern. That makes it 10 a.m. Pacific time, and that would put us at the second of the two hearings. If especially to our YouTube moderators, our great YouTube moderators who help me out a lot, if anybody sees any updates regarding the gag order, I believe, and Jennifer, I do have that right? The gag order was second, and the motion to compel for evidence was third, correct?
That's right, but this could take a while, and also the judge could decide to issue an opinion later. I've seen that many times, so we'll see if he does an opinion right on the spot or whether he decides to give a written opinion at a later time. But I think he's going to uphold it.
Let's
did she make it into a job?
Let's go back to folks. I want to kind of go as rapid fire as I can through some of these through some of these comments. Yeah. So Queen is saying, Queen of the Amazon finds. Look at that. That's a great username. You know, hey man, we all need to find those treasures on Amazon. Hashtag KJB. What about the gag order? Any chance that gets lifted soon? We experts like Jennifer and others have repeated that they think it is more likely that the gag order stays in effect, and the challenge at the lower level court will be unsuccessful. But what will the Idaho Supreme Court say upon them actually properly receiving that challenge from the media coalition behind those who are against the gag order? That's going to be really interesting. And so we'll be following that closely, because that does change the dynamic of the case as far as public consumption. And I want to know exactly where that goes. I think you know where Walt and I stand on. I'm sure Jennifer is the same. Jennifer, I know you were working for the FBI.
Bryan has something. Let's read it. Let me pop over there. It says, I don't think we're going to see the other ones, but anyway, it says the family would like to thank everyone for continuing to follow this case and keep the memories of Kaylee, Maddie, Zaina, and Ethan alive. They are what is important, not the defendant. We are thankful that the Latah County District Attorney's Office finally took the case to a grand jury and came back with an indictment. At the same time, we are disappointed that the judicial process has not been more efficient in addressing the gag order. This is just the beginning of a long journey for all of the families, and we are thankful for your continued support. This is the next one that Kendall Ray is covering. So that is what the family has said. I'll pop you back over to Bryan or to JD. This is Parawoman Radio, and I'm Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs up, it helps me dance out into the algorithm, bring more people back to the party. It's just a free way to help my channel out. And if you like my channel, please consider subscribing. I'd love to have you aboard.
Now you're here on the media side of things, but we are all for
that I even though I have it, I won't report. And then I watch the competition report it. And I'm like, I can't go on. I'd like to go on TV. We didn't report that because of this. We don't do that. But there are people who report everything, and you can't.
I find it interesting how different states, different jurisdictions, judicial jurisdictions, and different judges will all have different interpretations on how to protect the process. And they all have different ways.
Yes.
And so Idaho has a gag order in this case, right? And they're trying, and that's done in good faith to protect the process, right? At least that would be their argument. Some cases do not. Some states, some jurisdictions do not allow any cameras in the courtroom, and it's minimal access at all. Different places have different ways to protect the process.
All right.
I always found it to be quite interesting that there's very little uniformity across multiple states, multiple jurisdictions about.
Did anyone see the recent, was it 48 hours? I can't remember. I didn't see it though. Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong one. Hold on a second. I didn't see it and I haven't found it free.
Does law have to catch up with the times and the technological ability now?
Yeah,
for people
the law
around
has
the
to
world.
catch up
We
with
have
the
people
time.
that are joining us on YouTube right now that are joining us from quite literally multiple continents.
Yeah, I
And
was
people
on a
that-
live just before I decided to go live from the Netherlands. So people are following our cases from all over the world.
That can consume information in real time and vocalize their opinions and thoughts and observations and
So let
feedback
me
on the
see
legal
what's
process all
happening.
in real time. That's never been
I might end this live because
that
I'm
was
not
never possible
seeing the
ever before
other
in human history,
cases.
that in real time you can follow
See what
someone's
WD
legal
Baker is
fate.
saying.
You can follow the fate of Bryan Kohberger. Actually, in Idaho, you can't because you can't stream the video. But I mean, if this case, just like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, you could follow every time that something happened in the courtroom. It wasn't just the people in the courtroom that were reacting to it. It was
I'm not getting
everybody
anything.
around the world that we're watching it in real time. So perhaps there needs to be more of a conversation in this country about how the legal process in high profile cases especially is protected, but also that constitutional law isn't violated when it comes to us being reporters, the media having access to what is happening so that we can document history. All right, that's enough of that. I promise. Let's go back to some of the
Tell
comments
us what's
that are
happening.
coming in. And somebody, okay, so Brian Enton is tweeting, according to a lot of people that are messaging me in all caps, and says that Bryan Kohberger is back in court right now.
Okay, I was about to
for the
ask.
gag order hearing. So he has elected to appear. Now, as we understand it, there might have been the option for him to waive his right to appear. But Jennifer, this
I
was
thought he
just
was
my
'cause he
2
got up
cents
and
on this
left.
earlier. Given his background, given his, given his education, him being there's very little surprise here about him wanting to be involved in the process, and also not being in a rush to get back to the same solitary confinement cell that he has been in for the last 5 months. Correct?
He is going to be an integral part of his defense. He is tearing through
I
those
thought you
terabytes
to
right now.
testify.
Well, maybe not this moment, but that's what he's doing in his cell, and he's not going to miss 1 minute of these hearings.
So he's back in court for now the gag order. Now, if you're Bryan Kohberger and you're hearing about this gag, what does Bryan Kohberger think of the gag order?
I would bet he doesn't like the gag order. I don't know.
Oh, I think he wants it.
Maybe he does.
You think he wants it, Jennifer?
I think he does. I think he
Yeah, you're
wants
probably
it because he's going to want all the
Do you
fame.
think he wants it? Do you think
and
he's just trying to
getting
be
the
all
fame because his
mysterious
name
and shit?
is out there every single day, every single hour. But he doesn't want all this evidence that they have out. I'm very convinced of that.
When I said he would like it, I was thinking the same thing about wanting the fame. Of course, that would be
he's gonna have fame regardless, right?
But if he is who we
well,
might
fame,
think he
fame
is,
isn't the right word.
infamy
Infamy is the
I
better
have
word.
to think about it.
If
and
he
watch
wants,
him.
but of course he would. I mean, if he is who
I don't think he'd
some
mind it
suspect
too
he
much.
is, for him it's
But I
fame.
don't
It's
think
not
he
infamy.
particularly wants it.
But I just wonder if. Well, I don't know. Jennifer's probably right, and if he's a criminal, he was studied criminology. He definitely would want the gag order if he's studying criminology, because he would understand the danger of information getting out, partial information getting out, information getting interpreted, information corrupting a potential jury pool.
Isn't the more access the media has to the process, and the more interviews that take place, and the more prodding that exists, is there a thought behind there's more of a chance for some sort of mishap to occur that jeopardizes the legal process, and that's behind also Bryan Kohberger's analysis of the gag order, Jennifer?
Well, anytime you put witnesses up where they can be interviewed by the media, there is such a huge issue with them giving a statement, and then they would have given a statement previously to law enforcement, and then they gave a statement in the grand jury, and now they're going to give a statement on the stand. So from a prosecution standpoint, it's horrible, because you know how it is in the media. I mean, you make one miscue with a word and it's, a big deal. Can you imagine in court if they just misstated something or corrected it? It's a very difficult situation. So that's what the prosecution is looking at avoiding.
Very interesting. I want to go to this comment from Lissy saying #KJB. I, as a lawyer, would also appear. So understandable he does that as a criminology student. Yeah, there's very little surprise to me, and that he wants to be involved in his own defense. He wants to be involved in the process. He doesn't want to be in the.
Well, I think you make a great point, though. I mean, he also probably, well, we don't know anything about him. We don't know enough about him. Maybe he likes to be alone, but you make a great point. What's the option? Going back to my solitary confinement, or at least being in a room with people where I'm the center of attention? And maybe if we're interpreting his personality correctly, he wants to be the center of attention.
Just some different oxygen. Being
Right?
in a
Just
different
a different
room.
Jail smell, I can tell you. Jail smell. the one thing about jails that you can't. I mean, they smell, and I'm not
and
saying.
I don't mean to laugh. It's just because if you've ever been to a correctional facility, they're all they're all unique, but I know what you're getting.
There's an odor, and it's bad food and humanity. I hate to say it, but
it's not fun.
It's not, and they're dark and they're dim, and I've always thought solitary confinement would be better than medium security when you're in a room with a bunch of other people that you don't necessarily know or trust. But yeah, why would he? I mean, he would definitely, if you have a choice between going back to solitary or any
sitting
jail,
sitting
in a courtroom that is clean and
just different. How about
different?
A different
That's
change
right.
of scenery.
That's right.
Let's go to Nadia says, hashtags all around. Why did the charge say kill and murder? Is there a legal difference? That's just terminology per the state, right? I mean, is that
murder is a charge?
But why?
Kill.
I don't.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I've heard that before. There's no charge.
Breaking and entering.
That's going to be their
breaking
boilerplate.
and entering. What did he steal?
Yeah, that's probably what they
these particular charges.
I'm a hard head.
Okay, let's go to some more comments and questions that are coming in, and let's continue to follow Bryan Enton on Twitter and make sure that we're not missing anything.
I don't think that the gag order is going to be lifted. Does anyone else?
I did have one comment while you're looking at those. I just think both sides, no matter what the audience, what everybody is thinking right now, there's nothing more important than the judicial process being followed appropriately, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Because no one wants this case to not see justice or to be overturned on appeal, no matter who wins. It's just we want the process to be fair. If the fight isn't fair, if the process isn't fair, it's not a good thing.
That's right.
Yeah,
No doubt
all
about
protecting the process. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, and making sure that.
But in a case like this, with as much media, the skilled media, international media, who know how to cultivate sources, there will be leaks no matter what.
There already have been.
All right. And there will be plenty of leaks. And because it's not just the Idaho, Boise, I think they have one TV market in Idaho. I don't remember what size it is, but it's a sort of beginner's TV market, if I recall.
Like Boise?
Boise, yeah.
Good,
so
great
we're
city,
waiting for the.
But my point is, you're now going to have these journalists who are
perhaps he
the
wasn't going to be there, but he walked back in. They said, and we're waiting. This is Pairwoman Radio, and I'm Amy. If you could give this live a thumbs up, a heart, a smile. We're coming from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube today. Hi, guys.
Entons of the world that are, and others, who have no end.
Right. I mean, you and I are in that same.
I've always used sources. I've said sources say, but as a last resort, I've known people who said a source tells me. That is what?
Yeah, no,
really. But I think the source should be used as a tool to work on people like Jennifer, maybe not Jennifer because it's the FBI, but to let maybe
Bryan
somebody
just
to get somebody on the
11
record.
minutes ago,
but
that he's back in the trial in the courtroom for the second hearing
10 years ago and tried to talk you into being a source on a high profile case. Your reaction would be what? Putting you on the spot.
We are going to see the next one. I wonder if he'll be in there for the third one. They were saying he was probably just wanting to go in there for like a different change of scenery because he is isolated and maybe just different air to breathe.
Million years.
Jennifer, what if we had a great conversation and we had our similar views, about the world and, and we had so much. Okay.
No way.
Maybe you and I are, we have friends common. Nope. See that the FBI is
way. But I do want to say this
ironclad
for the media individual. I just get to provide analysis of the information given, right? No matter whether it came from a source, I'm strictly just analyzing the information before me, right? But if you're in the media and you have a source tell you something, aren't you obligated to report that? And I don't know because I'm really not in the media per se. So
No, if a source came to me with information, my first instinct as a journalist is to vet it, is to try to, and as to your point, Walt, go for a second source.
Well, and you
I
go
think
for the
Banfield needs to
you
start
could go to a
doing
law
that.
enforcement
She's
agency and
becoming
say,
so
look,
sensational.
here's what I'm told. And, part of it is psychological in a way. How do they react? Are they stone faced like we think Jennifer would have been? Or like an FBI agent would have been? I mean, I've known FBI agents to talk a little bit, but nothing on record.
You've had more luck
nothing
than
on
I have.
record.
I've never had a federal agent.
I've
I've made friends with a lot of cops. I've
Right.
made friends with a lot of state troopers, state police.
But I've never a source in the handful of times where I've said sources say, I'm just going to say, I don't think it's ever been an FBI agent.
I have a better chance making one of my cats come to life and talk with me at home than I do a federal agent.
On Jennifer's question,
I do.
There's no obligation for us to use what the sources say.
No.
And in fact, our organization, Nexstar, frowns on the use of sources. And there's certain things that are required when here's what sources tell me. And it would depend on what is the story. Is it such an important story we are warning people about something? Like that would be a way that you would go, okay, I can see using it then.
You weigh every little, I think, I don't know about you, the amount of times that I have used sources in my reporting, I could probably count them on one hand in my whole career.
I would say the same.
And it's only like the circumstances just have to be aligned in a certain way where you are doing it for the greater good.
It is the easier way to do it. And it's the faster way to do it. On a Monday, I get a source and I go on and I say, a source tells me, blah, please, no. So now that's the lazy way to go. Now on Tuesday, I get a second source. Now I got sources. The lazy thing to do, or the aggressive thing to do, you might say, I think, is to say sources say, but I'm trying to beat the competition. I got to beat the competition. The competitive nature of what we do is huge.
Because that source could be talking to other media outlets.
That's right. And you've got a scoop. You've got a scoop. But the better thing to do is to use the sources and go to the horse's mouth, if you will, and say, here's what I know. Can you verify it? Here's what I know. I'm not going to tell you how I got it. Can you verify it?
The reason we're having an extended conversation about this, folks, is because this might be the reality for the next, 5 months, 4 to 5 months, because if the gag order remains in effect and is upheld at multiple levels of the Idaho court system, then the only way that we're going to be getting information directly from law enforcement or prosecutors or anybody involved really in the process now legally is going to be through sources say, or a source says, and that might be the prism in which we are viewing information and receiving information.
It will definitely happen with this case. There's no doubt.
Yeah, and already has. So we're paying. Yeah, Jennifer.
Can I ask one quick question? Sorry, because I never looked at it as you're saying it. In other words, if you believed what a person came to you and said, you had no equivocation, isn't it your duty to report that? And maybe it's just my ignorance of understanding the process. If you 100% believe that, and you are charged with presenting known facts that you believe to the public, just help me with this.
Because I don't know that a source, these aren't, look, for us.
It's an excellent question, though.
For us, though, look, I got to be honest with you. I'm never 100% sure about anything in many ways, because anything can happen. You know, we can get close to it, but the point would be, if it's a source and that doesn't want to be identified, they could be making something up. So I wouldn't consider anything a source tells me is necessarily fact. I want something from the source that makes me believe it is a fact. And as far as the responsibility to report it, I would again go back to, are the sources telling me that a water supply is poisoned?
Hearing.
That's the public good.
They're
That's
in
important.
there now, and we're waiting.
Are the sources telling me, I'm working on a case today about a murder suspect on the run who's just a long trail of trouble. Are the sources telling me where this guy is? And do I have multiple sources telling me that? My first step would be take those sources to the law enforcement, the U.S. Marshal who are looking for him. But beyond that, if it's a if it's a basic case like this, where it's, I hate to say it, but it's I don't want to
Part
call
of
it
what the fabric of
entertainment.
the case now.
I don't want to call it entertainment, but it is, we are interested in this case. There's an intrigue. Is what my source is telling me going to is it worth harming the case?
Jennifer, to answer your question, if a source comes to me with information, I'm not going to be used as a megaphone to just repeat that information like a squawk box. I'm not just gonna continue, not gonna just relay that. My job, our jobs as reporters, is then to get to get more, use that as a launching point to receive more information, and also to make sure that this person is telling us the truth, and also not just a part of the truth. Sometimes people might come to you with information and say and tell you, 30% of the reality of the situation. And then it's really, if you just then announce that on Twitter, then you're not doing your job as a reporter to then dig.
This is what Bryan is saying. The Gonzalez family attorney wants the gag order issues resolved quickly, asking the judge to address it this week. So that means that the judge won't rule on it today, is what I'm thinking. Let's see what else he says. Judge says because the media coalition went to the Supreme Court, it has slowed the process down. And that's all that's been said on that. We are currently waiting for the video of this hearing. They're in there now for the gag order, and that was Bryan Entenman. He's sitting in there now tweeting what's happening. Parawoman Radio, and I'm Amy. Thank you for being here.
I get it. I do this streaming stuff a lot. I get it.
Jack said, and he's not the first to say it, get it first, but get it right. And it really should be get it right, but get it first.
Mm-hmm.
Because yes, we
How
want
are
to
they
be
gonna
first.
get
And
it
it's
right
way more competitive
less
now
than a year
than it's been
later?
ever. News Nation, for example, still a relatively new entity, but pushing out there to get answers and get them first. No doubt about it. But there's more media, and there's unprofessional media that I'm sure source tells me, and that's out there too. And let's not pretend the professional media doesn't compete with the unprofessional media.
But some of the unprofessional media is more professional than the professional media
to get clicks, because we look at it and we'll say, I got to verify that.
And this is why so much information will surface on Reddit, some of it true, some of it untrue, but like you'll get a whisper of an allegation, and then the responsible journalists, responsible reporters, upon receiving that tidbit, will then work to confirm it or work to garner its authenticity. And so we have a process here as far as receiving information. Walt and I, we try to, and others in our newsroom here at WFLA, we work on maintaining our standards all the time and ask the tough questions. But Jennifer, I appreciate you asking.
That's a great question.
It's
a nice question.
It's a question now that is so. This case is almost a microcosm for how we go about. What are the ethics? Where are the standards? Where is the line when it comes to receiving information from sources, and how you vet and then report that information if you do choose to report it at all? So there's a lot of minutia here that goes into the weeds as to how we go about our business. But I appreciate the conversation. Let's go back and just make sure I haven't missed anything coming up for air here for a second after our talk about journalism ethics and the use of sources. Bryan Enton tweeting out 5 minutes ago, the Goncalves family attorney wants the gag order issues resolved quickly, asking the judge to address it this week. The judge says because the media coalition went to the Supreme Court, it has slowed the process down. Interesting. So the judge is saying that the media coalition's decision to go to the highest
Well, they
court in
needed to.
Idaho
I think this is a
has
gag order that
complicated and
is
slowed the process down.
rights are being.
I find that to be.
Is Idaho though? Isn't Idaho one of
is
our
one
reddest
state I would not want to get
states?
caught in for anything.
I believe it is. I just
It's a smoke
very
medical
conservative state.
marijuana, and I want to go to this trial, but marijuana is not legal in Idaho. There are so many people in their court systems in prison and jail because of marijuana, which is so unfair.
I'm not saying
I need to find a friend in one of the surrounding states to leave my marijuana at.
I just would say that theoretically, and I don't know if the judges there are elected as they are in Florida or appointed. If they're appointed, I mean, a conservative judge is going to take. I think
transitioned off of all my prescribed narcotics to medical marijuana, and I need it for the pain.
Approach for release of information.
I was dying on the prescribed narcotics. I was bedridden. And now that I'm on the medical marijuana, I am no longer bedridden. I'm still in pain a lot, but I mean, I'm up and I'm living my life.
I've had judges who would let us in the courtroom, but not record the audio because they did not want anything taken out of context. They were expecting, okay, you've got to put the whole testimony, which we can't do in a story that's a minute and a half. And I kind of get that. I get that because out of context can be out of context and it can slant a case either way. But so that sounds like a conservative view of it, but it could very well have slowed down the process.
But I know Jennifer is just thinking, just protect the process, right, Jennifer?
No, what I'm chomping at the bit about is that the media.
I think Jennifer, if you can hear us, you froze up a bit on the Zoom call. Hopefully it'll unfreeze here in just a second. It's always when they blink. It's always when they blink too. So now
it was also at a very like a cliffhanger point of view. Like she said, the media.
Yeah, she was setting
like
it
the
up.
next sentence would have revealed what she was going to say.
Jennifer, if you can hear us still, it appears we've lost you on the Zoom call. You're frozen. I'm still looking at you here on my multi-view. So
if anyone wants to come up and talk on the live, you can do that. Just drop you want to do it, and I'll give you the link.
Comment here. Let's bring up here. Let's go here to me, Walt. Bring up the comment. M says, hashtag AJB, exactly. A source should be a starting point, not the whole story.
That's right.
Love hearing how others in the media deal with these things. But to your point,
it's so competitive.
It's so competitive, but at the same time,
ibuprofen though, because my back
everyone
is killing
has
me today.
the same standards.
No, there's
standards.
No doubt. And
it's like
people may not realize this, but the way
stomach.
So we know a guy that's a national correspondent like Bryan has gone up through the ranks.
I'm going to take a Tylenol. I'll be right back.
And the way it works, you work in market A, which is a smaller market, maybe a Boise, Idaho. I don't know if that's a starting market, but
child
the smallest
2.
market is Glendive, Montana. It's 2010, 210. There's 210 markets. There are journalists, TV journalists, and print journalists who will start with a small paper and maybe stay there their whole life, which I think is awesome. The money's not going to be very good in those places because the commercials aren't as expensive. But I think it's awesome when somebody stays in a place and reports in the place they know. However, the people who want to move up will sometimes be a little overly aggressive on
overzealous.
They need a scoop. I need a scoop. I got to put a scoop on my reel, or I need a scoop in my newspaper, in my clippings. And I think so that that's one form of competitiveness. But then you get into the bigger markets, and all of the networks want to break something on this story. And there's, it's all about, I hate it, but it's all about money, right? You want to scoop because you're going to get viewers, eyeballs, and that's money, and that drives it. And I think that drives the overly aggressive reporter to go, a source tells me.
But to your point, we've talked a lot about this. I know Jennifer has unfrozen, so we're going to come back to her in a second to finish her point. But really quickly, this is why you and I have that same uncomfortable reaction when you read a piece of work and it's entirely built on sources say, or
but you read it, but you read it.
Yeah, but as a reporter, I shift a little bit, and I get because man, you're putting a lot of faith
I know.
and a lot of confidence in your sources. And really it's in a way going all in at the poker table, because if your source is wrong, or your source has manipulated you, or your source has an agenda, or if your information isn't correct, or it's only telling a part of the story,
That's right. Taking something out of context.
You're jeopardizing your
and then
career. And so
yes, and I'll tell you, I think in this world where our former president, in my opinion, and I don't have a dog in the fight, I really don't. But when our former president, in my opinion, misused the word fake news over and over, to the point where now the national people across the country use fake news as to opine on a story they don't agree with, or they use fake news maybe to opine on a story that is all source based. Well, that fuels that, and it because fake news, what fake news really means, it is fake. It is a completely fabricated story, and stories that the former President Trump said were fake news, they weren't completely fabricated. He just necessarily didn't agree with it, and that. So because of that, I think it's important, more important than ever, that we verify somehow on the record.
Yeah. And I've talked about on stream in the past about how the public in a lot of different ways has lost. But there has been the trust that exists between the public and the media at large has endured. It's been fractured in a way, but I hope that people remember that there's different sections. Just calling it the media or just calling it the news, like there's so many different sections of the media, so many different sections of the news industry, and some of it goes up to what people would refer to as mainstream media, all the way down to the local journalists pounding the pavement on the ground. And so everyone try to remember to have a open mind when it comes to how different organizations represent different ideals when it comes to how news should be reported and presented as fact. Let's 100%. Go back to Jennifer Coffindaffer. Jennifer, are you back?
Yes. You know what happened? We're having this amazing, horrible lightning and thunderstorm. It shook my building, that piece of thunder, and it, I guess, froze the Wi-Fi. But anyway, just one quick point before I head off to some other obligations. I just wanted to say the media made a terrible mistake skipping the district judge. And that is a big point that I think is partially at
Say that again. It did what to the district judge? I just want to make sure I heard you correctly.
They skipped him.
Oh yeah.
You can't go and ask the president without asking the vice president. They made a crucial error, basically saying we don't really care about what this district court judge says. So you've got the layers. It was the magistrate judge, then the district judge, and then the judge above that. And instead of going the right sequence, they jumped him. And that is seen, I can tell you, as disrespectful.
And I think that was in all likelihood done to expedite the process, saying, look, it's going to, I guess if you're the media coalition attorney, you're of the mindset that this is going to go to Idaho Supreme Court eventually. It's going to be challenged at that level of the state eventually. Let's just can we just get this along and move this along and just get to the highest court in the state possible? But it's not really in Jennifer's opinion and others, that's not exactly how the process works.
She's right. I would have to agree with her.
Jennifer, before we lose you to a lightning storm and an internet outage, I want to just give you the floor is yours. We're going to continue to take everyone's questions here out of the YouTube live comment section, Twitter, TikTok as well. But the floor is yours before we say farewell.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me on. Well, it's always great to be here with you. I'm sorry we missed Mr. Tragos and Mr. Inton, my buddy. But your audience is always just one of the best. It's amazing. I always look back at their questions, their comments. They're great.
Are we not going to listen to the second
Jennifer,
thanks, Jennifer.
You're always welcome here on WFLA Now. We really appreciate you.
It's always great to hear actual words from an FBI agent.
Yeah.
Other than I can neither
says
confirm
nor deny.
Which I remember I remember the first time I heard that as a young television reporter in Marshall, Texas, and
okay, so Bryan says this. Hold on a second. There are two different issues happening. This was 7 minutes ago. He's in the courtroom. In court right now with the Kohberger gag order. One, the Goncalves attorney wants clarity so he can speak on behalf of his clients. Two, the media coalition is fighting for more public information, less strict gag order. And then 8 minutes ago, he said the judge says AP Media Coalition needs to tone down their challenge to the gag order. Do you think he'll lift it? Do you think there's a possibility that the gag order will actually be lifted?
Got it. Oh, okay. I get it.
Yeah, Walt, it's this is your first time in here
I
streaming with me?
thought they
No, I
were.
think a couple
There's-
of
they
times.
must
but
still
oh,
be in there.
yeah,
because
Oh, no,
only
wait, the
it's
first
being
live stream we ever did
recorded,
in here, you were part of.
taped.
that's right.
We
Our
get to see it
introductory
Stuff,
after
yes,
it
yeah,
happens.
and you haven't asked me since, and I think it's because I don't walk by your desk anymore.
Well, you gotta come say hello,
You're
man.
separate. You should have you. Do you have a piece where you show where you moved from? You must have.
I think, yeah, I think we had a very small.
If you guys could like
setup.
this
Our
video
offices were. Well, you didn't really have an office.
and
You were
or
wide open.
subscribe,
You were in the middle of the newsroom.
Heroin
Yeah.
Radio,
So
it helps
walking
me out
by.
Oh
tremendously.
God, I used to piss people off so much because I have a loud voice, so I would be in the middle of the
That's
newsroom. And
I remember you and Masa when I first got
wow.
here,
we are
yelling at each other about talking too
Is
much.
Masa still
Yeah.
with them?
But
And
but
you
all-
were
It's been
both
a long
right.
time.
but all in fun because we're
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a brother sister.
I don't know if it was fun the
Masa.
one time, but it wasn't it wasn't terrible.
It
But
was-
I'm just
it was
saying,
hilarious.
I get it. You know,
Masa and I are the two loudest people at WFLA, and we know that. And,
That's all
and
right.
so we
Okay,
try to.
so
just
this is
enunciate it.
what Bryan
It's
is
all right.
saying on the hearing. The judge is not. The judge is not making any decisions today on the Kohberger gag order. Hearing set for June 9th to address it. Also a hearing June 27th to address cameras in the courtroom. Let's see if they're going to show it pretty soon. They showed the first one about 5-10 minutes after the hearing happened, so this one should be coming. And then I think we'll stop the live. Not sure if I should have stopped it and restarted for this one. Oops, I'm not showing you the right one.
And this might be for a variety of different reasons. It might be to capture Bryan Kohberger leaving the Latah County Courthouse.
If he's
But
leaving, that means he's not
keep
gonna
an
be in the
eye-
third.
fact, I'll bring this up here in the center of our screen. Do you have another few minutes to do a rapid fire Q&A?
yes,
with
yes,
me?
I do.
And
I
that
do.
way that we
I think I'm in pretty good
can-
shape. I've been doing some other work while I'm here. Yeah,
Cool.
for sure.
So,
Love it.
folks, starting now, hashtag Hey Walt only. Questions and comments just for WFLA's senior investigator here on the right side of your screen, who's
Should've
working on a
had your
lot of
stats, yeah.
stories here in Florida right now, but he took time out of his day to come hang out with us in the stream center. So let's get to comments. I'm only looking for hashtag Hey Walt. If you have an observation that has gone unnoticed, if you have a question that has gone unasked, I'm really trying to get as many up on screen. We'll look for Hey Walt in a second, but really quickly, will the jury be sequestered? That's a good question. I mean, how does the this is more of a question for Peter Tragos or one of the other legal analysts that we have here on stream. Maybe a Bryant Camerano is another one, but how you protect the jury and make sure that the jury is as neutral and as
Sequestration is really not done that often. I'm not sure if either of those attorneys would agree it's extreme. I know when I've tried to think, oh, that juror will be sequestered, I was wrong. So it's possible it won't be sequestered. The judge tells the jurors, beginning of the day, end of the day, generally, maybe at lunch break, probably at lunch break, do not watch any media, do not do this, do not do that. Do they really do it? Who knows? But they are told and they are warned, and jurors get removed.
It's
and
really
it's embarrassing to get removed, but it's hard. It's harder now than it's ever been because we have social media as well. And so that's a hard thing to predict.
Hashtag Hey Walt, can you tell us a little bit about why the judge was changed and what that may mean about the gag order? So really quickly, the judge was changed because this went to district court.
Right.
So it's in a different court now. And that is, of course, that changes the legal sort
Well,
of
that's an
trajectory.
arraignment court generally. You're arraigned there. I don't think it impacts the gag order. And I think if I was a betting man, and you probably could bet on it somewhere, I would say the gag order remains in place. In a state like Idaho, it remains in place. In a different state,
He's going to make them
less
work
conservative
for
state,
it and then leave it in
might be
place.
removed. But I would bet in a state like Idaho, and maybe even in a less conservative state, I would think you keep the gag order again, because this story has such intrigue. It will no doubt be a movie.
I think what they're going to
be
do is
multiple
let
books. I think there's
do
already
this,
one
like
underway.
let them record
There-
it, and
there
then
is
you
a
get to
thirst
see
for
after.
information from people like Purple Freak Vape Queen. and
Hi, Twitter.
right.
Don't feel too
she
confident
wants
about
it.
that either.
She wants information. They want information. People want information.
Yeah.
And we want to give the information, and we want to do it the best way possible. We want to beat the competition when it comes to getting the information. Those things collide, and there will be such a thirst for information about this case, especially not only in Idaho, in small Idaho, sparsely populated Idaho, but everywhere across the world for this case. So,
and as far as what that may mean about the gag order, Bryan Enton tweeting out 11 minutes ago, there are two different issues happening in court right now with the Kohberger gag order. The Goncalves Goncalves attorney wants clarity so that he can speak on behalf of his clients. And the media coalition is fighting for more public information and less strict of a gag order. And then 3 minutes ago, Enton tweeting, the judge is not making any decisions today on the Kohberger gag order. Hearings set for June 9th to address it. Also a hearing June 27th to address cameras in court.
but if it's a law that they even in states where where it's open, the judge can still say no cameras. And
But every now, what's interesting, every now and again, a case comes around that changes policy.
Yeah.
And you have to wonder if this case, I mean, I understand that Idaho's had high profile cases, and we all know the ones that that come to mind. But this one might have influence on court policy and be looked at as an example as to why cameras should or should not be permitted in a courtroom in Idaho. And also, too, at the same time, should streaming be permitted? So very interesting to me.
The original reason cameras were kicked out of courtrooms was not about information. It was not about information getting out. It was about the noise of the camera.
Oh, wow.
Because it was film cameras.
Yeah, that's
right?
interesting.
And that's a long time ago. That's
Waiting,
why. And then
you can hear everything in a courtroom. For anyone who's never been in like a courtroom for,
2 hours
for a jury
on this
trial,
live.
you should
Come
do it, by the
on,
way.
show
It's a great, if
Brian.
you have never
Are there
been in a
people
courtroom for a
leaving?
jury trial, you should do it because
It looks
will
like
change your
there's people
perspective
leaving.
on our system.
somebody could be pouring. Sometimes you'll see the pouring of a glass of water, and you can hear
The bubbling
everything.
of
The
absolutely.
acoustics in most courtrooms are so
Yes.
vibrant and loud. You can hear
Yeah.
even the slightest people shifting in their seats. Sometimes something as quiet as that.
That's right.
Coughing.
Real
It's
quick,
very
just
annoying.
refreshing here, make sure I'm not missing anything from.
Let's see.
Oh, okay. No, Bryan Enton, correction. Both the gag order and cameras will be addressed on the 9th. 27th is an event. I always have difficulty with this word.
Evidentiary?
Thank you. It's one of those
Okay,
words
yeah.
that I have.
This is what Brian's saying. Both gag order and cameras will be addressed on the 9th. 27th is an evidentiary hearing.
But yes. So
we'll know on the 9th. The evidentiary hearing will be about discovery, I'm sure there will be complaints on, usually you hear a complaint on the defense side. I'm not getting this stuff fast enough. And that's important because the defense wants to build a case. I doubt it's going to be tried in October, but they want the evidence faster because they want to build their case. They want to see what the prosecution has. And quite frankly, the prosecution does not want to necessarily show their cards. They might deny that, but I think that's part of the game, if you will, the gamesmanship in a trial.
This is
I
supposed
want
to
to
be
get
a
3
live
more hashtag
outback
Hey
of the
Walt
court
in
hearing.
before we let you go. Danielle, hashtag Hey Walt. I think Brian wanted to hear the judge say the words not guilty and hoping that that's the final outcome, and that's why he stood silent.
It's an interesting view of and a theoretical peek into
Maybe
the
he wanted to
mind of
hear
an
it.
accused-
Do you think he's
accused,
that
killer? And that's possible. He
calculating?
he did
I don't
study
know.
criminology. Does that have an impact on it? That's the second opinion we've heard that goes along that way.
Eve says, just really quickly, yeah. So the pronunciation of the last name, I think Jennifer was saying Goncalves, and that was throwing me for
Gonsalves.
Kind of got stuck in there.
Gonzalez.
So I believe it's Gonzalez.
People say Goncalves.
Gonsalves?
No, yeah, Gonsalves. Yeah.
I've heard that. I've seen that name pronounced all three ways.
I've heard it both.
And this is why.
And I really don't know how to say
again, the pronunciation of names, it's really important.
Yes, it is.
It's important, but people make mistakes. And
is it Goncalves or Goncalves?
The one that no pronunciation was more discussed than Alex Murdaugh.
Oh yeah,
Alex
I
Murdaugh
even
or
talked
Alex
about
Murdaugh?
that. I'm like,
that
is
was
it
I had
Murdoch
reporter
or
friends
Murdaugh?
from multiple states.
Is it
Alex or is it
that
Alec?
one, and people still can't agree on if it's Murdoch
that's frustrating.
or Murdaugh.
From our point of view, that's frustrating. And in various stories, multiple stories in my career, the pronunciation has changed from day 1 to day 5, and then gone back to day 1. And it's a discussion. And we don't take, I mean, at least I don't take it lightly. I've had people tell me after, oh, my name's pronounced this way. I go, why didn't you tell me? Oh, it doesn't matter. Yes, it does.
Say Williamson.
I'll tell them. Yes,
and a lot of people
I asked
are
them
like,
before.
how do
How do you pronounce your
like,
name? Oh, some
they
people
don't
say
get
this,
the
some people say
SON
that.
at it.
What do you
I
say?
say
Because it
Sir
is important,
Williamson.
especially when it's
That's
a
how
lot.
you say.
And so there should be an effort to clarify
But
that.
sometimes
and
I'll
make a
say
national
Williamson.
sort of like AP puts
Williamson.
pronunciation guides on.
It took me
on their sites.
3 months to get your name right.
There are people in our newsroom who still don't have it right. So.
Buteau.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know what I looked at his name. Was it Walt?
Listen closely at the next meeting.
I know people still get it wrong.
I don't care.
What is it?
Within my family, we pronounce it 4 different ways.
I get Buno a lot of different
yeah,
ways.
Right.
Too.
So
I've never changed
I remember
my
with
name.
you, I thought
Amy Williamson
Bono,
is my maiden name.
But
did you call me?
No,
What,
I didn't
Bono?
call you that. Bono.
That would be funny. I don't think I've ever been
Sonny
called Bono.
Sonny Buno.
I was born Amy Williamson, and I'm gonna die Amy Williamson.
You know Buno.
You know Buno. That's
you know
good.
Buno. That's how you say it.
You got a brand.
Buteau.
Well, I have a.
You have to emphasize the toe, man.
Buteau. Yeah. But that's just one pronunciation within my family. They pronounce it differently, so I don't take it personally.
Buteau.
Even look, I see him every day.
What is it? Buteau?
And it took a while for me to get his pronunciation right.
Nobody's
Reminder: it's
saying
easier
it.
said.
There you go.
No,
Come
it's not
on,
easier
show
said
us.
than done.
Are we gonna
You guys
see
what I'm saying.
the gag here?
Let's see here. That was where we have 2 more.
Yes, 2 more.
Holly says you sound like Joe Rogan. You ever get that one?
I have.
Yeah,
I need
he
to
does
listen to
actually
Joe
know
Rogan.
that she
Figure
says
out what
that.
that means.
Wow.
Yeah.
Your voice sounds like Joe
That's
Rogan.
not an insult.
It was the first
That's
hashtag
what it
wall
means.
comment that I saw.
Some people want to put meaning into something that there's no meaning except what it sounds
Looking
like.
here at any other.
What do you mean by that?
How many do you got? You have some that you do. Are you, is that what you're doing right now? Let me get inside how the sausage is made here. Are you streaming through a number of questions and looking for the one that might be most pertinent? Is that what you're doing?
My work.
Interesting.
Interactive journalism. I don't. If you use the
Always
hashtag, it's not a
amazing.
guarantee that you get your comment on screen. I'm
No.
trying to carry the conversation forward
That's
here
right.
and try to get to questions we
Skill.
haven't seen before.
Yes,
And some of them are on topic, and some are just people want to know. Hey, well, who's your favorite baseball team?
I hate to say it's the Oakland A's.
It's rough times, man.
They're setting a record for futility.
Rough times. Charles G. Hashtag Walt. Do you think that this case could be open and shut with the jury, or could end in a hung jury based on the evidence that is available to the public?
It really depends on the defense
evidence.
attorney. It really good to. I've been in cases that seemed open and shut. That, the O.J. Simpson trial, right? They make what you will of that. So I don't know. That's such a hard thing to predict. And at this point, does he have a public? He has a public defender, doesn't he? Does he have a public defender?
Mm-hmm.
So does the public defender should be allowed to get enough resources, as in money, to have great experts, because that's what's fair. Does that happen? You hope
They're
it happens,
supposedly
because he is not guilty of
outside
anything
of the
right now.
courthouse.
He is officially
And Bryan might be walking out here. That's why we're watching this.
not guilty. And so it just depends on the defense team, depends on the expert witnesses. Are you able to get the best a DNA guy in the country to do that? Do you have the resources to get the best DNA guy in the country? Because if you don't find the murder weapon, DNA is going to be huge.
In the field of
They set the court case for October 2nd of 2023, 8:30 Central Time. A lot of the experts are saying that it'll be postponed, and Ryan's lawyer says it should only take 4 to 6 weeks.
genetic genealogy, as I understand it, being used to get narrowed down to the Kohberger family, and forensics,
huge,
and digital forensics will be absolutely
expert
monumental
witnesses
in this trial.
That's right.
Speaking of trial, Sarah wants to know #Walt, can he still plead insanity or incompetence? And
I think that's not allowed. I don't think Ohio. I thought you had in Idaho. Idaho, do you not have that option?
And even if you did have that option, is it past this is a
I don't think if they
him.
have the option, I don't believe it's past that point. I don't believe. I think that could happen at any time. Good question for a legal expert. I don't know the answer to that, but
it's a great, I mean, again, we were supposed to have the lawyer, Peter Tragos, to provide legal expertise on this live stream. He texted me saying he had a technical issue that he could not believe.
The insanity defense. The insanity defense has not been available in Idaho since 1982.
Wow.
According to
look at him attributing
News Nation. That according to a legal expert. So no.
Last one, we'll get you out on this. #Walt from Cheryl. Do you think they'll be able to find an impartial jury? We asked this question before every high profile trial.
I've been I've covered stories of international intrigue, and I'm always amazed that as you sit during the voir dire process, or as a judge in Texas once called it, voir dire, but it's really voir dire.
Pronunciations, man.
And that's basically jury selection, right? As you go through that process, you'd be amazed. And I'm assuming that Cheryl, it's not my sister Cheryl, is it?
Cheryl, are you Cheryl? Buteau?
She might pronounce it differently, but I'm assuming Cheryl, anybody on this feed is into this story.
Yeah.
So they can't imagine somebody who is not into the story, right? Well, there are people if you sit in on the voir dire process, in this case, I guarantee you will find people who, I don't know a lot about it. I didn't really read the headlines, but keep in mind, it's okay if you have extensive knowledge about a case. You can still be put on a jury, and keep in mind, attorneys get peremptory challenges. They agree on how many they get. That basically means I don't want JB on my jury. I don't have to say why. I just don't want him on my jury. But some people, it might strategically, and this would be a great question for an attorney, you might want them to know a lot about the case. One side might want them to know a lot about the case, and they may want to get them into that pool, into the final jury.
Jury
and the
selection
other side,
is huge.
It is great. It's the strategy that because you only need one. You need to cast some doubt
with one
juror. And if you can get 3 or 4 that maybe they don't, I don't know. What would you look for here? You'd look for somebody who doesn't, and maybe a little anti-government that might trump up charges.
Yeah, but how do you find that out through jury selection?
Man, good questions.
Yeah, the questionnaire would include something that would hint for that bias.
But then I think it's a matter of I think a good defense team has somebody who specializes in jury selection, and they know body language. They know, I said this, well, that might mean this. And I think jury selection
is fascinating.
Is the most fascinating part of a case. But as a reporter, can be quote unquote boring because we don't really know exactly the machinations that are going into what's being asked. And so you can imagine it. You kind of find out after from a good attorney, oh, we liked this jury because of this. Yes, the answer, yes, they will find an impartial jury. I believe in the system. I really do. And I think that it may amaze you as you're following this case.
I'm going to tell you a story. You're going to love this. I'm always trying to advance how we do news here, streaming, interactivity. And I was on a call a few weeks ago with 3 developers, 3 brilliant people. And we were talking about, streaming and interactivity and social media, and we were having a great conversation. And I made a reference to, one time I did, one time I had a need for a tool that would help me do this in the Gabby Petito story. And all three, this is a true story. All three. Well, no, it was one guy who said, what was that story? Gabby Petito?
See? There you go.
And he goes,
right.
who's Gabby Petito? Because they needed context to understand that it was a missing
right.
persons case.
That's right.
And so I said, oh, Gabby Petito, missing person, national search for
international intrigue.
Yeah, I mean, international intrigue.
Yeah.
And then I was blown away because the second and third developers on the call, he asked, hey, you guys ever hear of Gabby Petito? And I go, no. And they were not, I know for a fact, they were not having a go at me or anything like that. They genuinely had no idea who Gabby Petito was. And it was through all three developers on this call.
Wow.
So
and
can you find an impartial jury?
Yes,
can you find
and keep this in mind too, Cheryl, whether you're my sister or not, keep this in mind. There are people who don't want to be on juries because for multiple reasons, fear, time, right? So they are going to poison their answers, and you can see it when you watch voir dire. But there are also people who want to be on the jury, and they might even say, and I'm sure this has happened. Oh, I've never heard about this case. No, because they might want to be on the jury because it's intriguing to be on a jury for this case if you have the time. So does that mean they're impartial? It may or may not, but it does help the ability to find a so-called impartial jury.
This is the gag order hearing. Let's listen in live. Walt, we'll let you go.
So
Thank you so much.
They're going to be showing the gag order hearing. Here we go.
Okay. Now let's open it up.
We get to see a little bit more. Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, good. We get to see a picture.
Still.
Who's that guy? None of you are here to tell me. This is Parawoman Radio, and we're watching the second hearing. This is the gag order hearing on the Bryan Kohberger case.
Okay. Are your speakers all the way out, Mr. Caron? Tap it or hit it. Just kidding. Do we have tech people who take care of this?
JB here with you in the Stream Center. Just wanted to let everybody know I'm boosting the audio just a little bit so that hopefully everybody can hear, but this is the raw audio being boosted a little bit out of Idaho. This is, again, believed to be the gag order hearing out of Idaho.
Somebody is trying to fix that? Ms. Masses, excuse me, can I hear you now? Say something. Oh yeah, what I can do is should I just move mine up? That will pick it up. But then we'll have a big echo. Obviously, I am not very skilled at such things. Okay. Really sorry for all the delays. There were other things going on before I came into court, and now we have this. So thank you for your patience. Okay, while we're waiting for that, I'm going to recognize Mr. Gray, who's representing the Gonsalves family. My plan was to go through the variety of motions that each representative has starting with the Associated Press, then going to the Gonzalez family, and then to the party's council, and we'll see where we go. But we're not going to have an 11 o'clock because we're just going to take care of all the scheduling issues now in this hearing.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yeah, let's go off the record until we can fix this. Thank you. Okay. Can you say something, Mr. Perone? We're off the record.
Mr. Perone.
Fine with me.
Okay. So go ahead and mute that.
So I'm going to unmute myself.
I'm going to unmute.
Huh? Okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Your Honor.
And I can hear you, Mr. Perone. We have an echo now. This is more than my outside voice. Okay, is that better? Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. Let's get back on the record then. Back on the record, State versus Bryan Kohberger, CR 29222805. I was explaining how the order and the scheduling conference might go, at least my plan. And so I'm going to start with you, Mr. Perone. Your clients have the motion to vacate the amended non-dissemination order filed May 1. Also, the motion to intervene filed May 1, same date. And now this case is in my hands, so I need to set a hearing. And I'm wondering how far out. I'd like to get some briefs, and this is a message to everybody before the hearing, including I want to hear arguments about whether or not there should be cameras in the courtroom in a high-profile case like this one. So, Mr. Perone, what looks good for you? And let me throw out, knowing that a lot of you were prepared to be here the week of June 26th, that might make sense. But I'll hear from you, Mr. Perone.
Yes, Your Honor. So with our motion to vacate, motion to intervene, we've briefed the merits issues there. I think as the court's aware, we also briefed those issues for the Idaho Supreme Court. So I would think we could be ready to move pretty quickly. We have not briefed the issue about video cameras in the courtroom. So if that's something that you'd like the media coalition to weigh in on as well, we would need to submit a separate brief on that, but we can do that in the week of the 26th. The 26th itself, I'm not available, but the rest of the week would work.
Excellent. And I'll tell you, the reason that I'm bringing up cameras in the courtroom is because if I address that issue and I haven't let you all know that that might be an issue, then I'm going to get a lot of grief for not allowing you to brief that issue. So that's why I'm giving you an advance notice on that. How do you feel about the afternoon of June 27? Given what's happening just quite recently, we might want to do that in person. I'm willing to do it remotely, but then we have to, there are a lot of different interests and different people who want to weigh in on that, so it might be better to be in person. But does that work for you? Say starting at 1:30, June 27, Mr. Carone?
Yes, Your Honor, that works for me. And Ms. Olson and myself can both come in person. We would have been there today in person, but we found out about the in-person option on Friday, so I apologize for using Zoom today, but we can certainly be there in person. If the court's anticipating hearing from witnesses that day to hold an evidentiary hearing, there may be some witnesses that would want to appear via Zoom if that's okay with the court. But I'm not sure if that's even something you're contemplating. I'm just flagging it in case you are.
Well, let me put it this way. It's your motion and others' motions. And one of the complaints that I've seen in the briefing is that there's no evidence in the case supporting any of it. You know, we're all kind of moving forward on supposition, I guess. Some of it is obvious, but I think that would be wise. I suppose you could just file declarations, and that's what's been doing, how that's been going. If we're going to have a lot of testimony, I might want to move this back to 10 a.m. just to make sure that we have enough time to get things finished that day. Would that work for you?
Yeah, so our position on the evidentiary issue is your summary was correct that we don't believe that there is an adequate factual record at this point. Given that it is our motion and it's based on the record that existed when the order was issued, procedurally, I'm not really sure there is an opportunity for additional evidence to be put forth. I only brought that up because I saw in Mr. Kohberger's opposition to our motion for reconsideration that there was a mention of an expert witness. If that evidence was going to come forward or other evidence, we of course would want the opportunity to cross-examine that individual or whatever individuals might be testifying. But, you know, as things currently stand for the record as it exists and the evidence that the Media Coalition intends to put forward, we included a declaration with our motion. I'm not sure there's really need for us to put on additional evidence, but if that's something the court was going to hear from the state or Mr. Kohberger, then I just wanted to bring that to the court's attention.
Thank you, Mr. Corona. Of course, you'd have the opportunity to cross-examine any witness. All right. Well, we'll stay at 1:30 then. So now, Mr. Gray. So I'm thinking that maybe we should keep these things together and do them the same day if that works for you and your clients.
Well, Your Honor, I see the issue very clearly different from the AP's motion versus my motion. I think their motion is more of a getting rid of the non-dissemination order, the gag order. My motion is a motion to amend and or clarify some of the issues in the gag order. They have a lot of constitutional different issues that we have. I have some issues that I think are very separate. So I would request a hearing on my own much sooner. I think the court's aware I filed this motion in February on this case, and there was a massive delay based on the fact that previous Judge Marshall was waiting for the Supreme Court to get some clarification regarding the AP's motion that she filed with the Supreme Court. So I'm ready to go when the court's ready to go, but I think our issues are very, very different than that of the AP's motion on this case. So I would request a hearing much sooner I can do it by the end of this week.
All right. Well, and I recognize this was all pretty short notice for everybody. And I don't know if, let me go back, let me go to Mr. Rudley and then Mr. Logsdon, because they're going to weigh in on that motion as well, I'm assuming. I'm thinking about maybe June 9th would be the soonest I could do this, but let me go to you, Mr. Logsdon.
Your Honor, we'd be ready to go and would expect to put on an evidentiary presentation that week of the 26th. To the extent that Mr. Gray wants to have his motion heard ahead of time, and just based on what I've read in it, I mean, obviously, if the court were to agree with some of the things that he says.
Into the mic, I guess.
Sorry. Obviously, if the court were to agree with some of the things that he says and winds up amending the order, that could change everything for everybody else. So to some extent, I think it actually is probably better to do them all at the same time, so the court isn't in piecemeal changing what we're all arguing about. But I would be ready for the 9th if the court chose to do it that way.
No judge likes to do things piecemeal. But I also understand that Mr. Gray and his clients have been waiting for a long time now. It's not anybody's fault. It's just how that came down, because the Associated Press et al. Went straight to the Supreme Court in February, early February, and that would trigger a delay, which it did, and it was important, I think, for Judge Marshall to get the direction from the Idaho Supreme Court before we start, chipping away at each order. I don't know if would you be. I mean, I'm okay setting it for June 9th, Mr. Gray, but you may have some testimony happening. You may want to wait until you hear what everybody else is saying. It's likely that there's going to be some adjustments, you might say, or clarifying in the order. Partly in my reading of the Supreme Court's decision, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but there were some hints maybe of what the trial court might want to consider. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Gray.
I was going to say, that since this is your gag order now, this non-dissemination order, Your Honor, and in reading my motion, if the court does want to consider making some of the modifications that might have been suggested in my motion, my motion may end up being moot. I think some of my modifications and or clarifications to the non-dissemination order are fairly minor, but allows, and I think the Supreme Court did give some guidance, which I think added weight to my arguments and my motion. So it's not above the court to take a look at my motion as well as any other motions that have been submitted to the court and modify the non-dissemination order, allowing for some of the issues that I've discussed in my motion, and then you would only have the AP who are attacking, I think, the gag order as a whole, the non-dissemination order as a whole. I'm just addressing a couple of clarifications and amendments that would allow myself as an attorney to speak on behalf of my clients that regarding the non-dissemination order. And I think it's your order now, so you're more than apt to be able to go and make those changes, and then we wouldn't have an issue with the non-dissemination order at all. So I don't think that's, so obviously the 9th, I'd like to keep the 9th because my issues are very small and narrow regarding that non-dissemination order. But if you were to make changes to those ahead of time that I was able to review and it was acceptable, I would withdraw my motion, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you.
Well, it would be highly unlikely for me to change the order before I hear from counsel, because I don't want to, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, I only want to do this once. And I'm happy to set it for June 9th, maybe 10:30. Does that work for you?
That does, Your Honor.
Okay. Does that work for you, Mr. Rudley?
Yes, Your Honor, it does.
Okay. Mr. Logston?
Make it work, Judge.
Okay. Let's do that in person. Okay. So now we have the June 9th at 10:30. We also have the Associated Press et al. On June 27th at 1:30. I assume that works for you, Mr. Rudley?
It does, Your Honor.
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, excellent.
Your Honor, may I speak?
Yes, Mr. Corona.
Your Honor, I apologize. I may have misunderstood what you said earlier. I was understanding that the week of June 26th was when the court was first available, but if the court is available to hear our motion earlier, we would be available on June 9th as well. I know that our most recent motion is pending more recently, but obviously we've been challenging this since February as well. It's our position that the non-dissemination order violates the Associated Press and Media Coalition's First Amendment rights. Those constitutional violations are irreparable. So we would like our motions to be heard as soon as possible as well. If I suggested otherwise by agreeing to the week of the 26th, that was simply because I misunderstood that was when the court was first available.
Thank you. Only one thing I'll say about that. Irreparable harm goes both ways. And so I was a little bit troubled by that claim without considering the Sixth Amendment considerations. I mean, this is a balancing. The law is clear on this. Okay, it's a balancing test. And when your client says that he's arguing it as the First Amendment is absolute, is also troubling. So I would suggest that maybe the Associated Press needs to tone it down, just ratchet down a little bit. Because some of the arguments, including the first line in the motion to intervene, says that the Supreme Court held a certain thing, that I do not think that is what the court held. And you know the difference in a holding of an appellate court. So I just felt obligated to help you out a little bit in terms of what the Associated Press is asking for. And in the meantime, there's a lot of potential irreparable harm from media that is affecting a fair trial. So that is really concerning. This is a very high-profile case. So I'm happy to set this on June 9th, too. Okay, how about we set yours at 1:30, though, so we don't kind of push them all together. Does that work for you, Mr. Rudley?
It does, Your Honor.
Okay, does that work for you, Mr. Logston?
I don't know if we'll have an evidentiary presentation ready by the 9th. That would be my main concern. We can certainly try. But
Well, let's see, and if that doesn't work out for you, then we'll talk about it. Okay, I just felt the obligation to talk about irreparable harm. Okay, there's a lot of interest here, Mr. Carone, and I think my job, my constitutional responsibility is to consider all of the potential irreparable harms, or all the injuries, or all the harms. So, I just want, maybe it's appropriate. I was just thinking, I just want to remind everybody, okay, on this particular issue, but all issues at all times, that we all, okay, judges, lawyers, journalists, media generally have constitutional responsibilities to both the First Amendment and the Sixth Amendment. And what I generally am seeing in the newspaper and the media is no discussion about the importance of the Sixth Amendment. It's just the First Amendment, which is very important. But here's the real reminder. The first sentence of the preamble of the Idaho Rules of Professional Conduct says that a lawyer, as a member of the legal profession, is a representative of clients, an officer of the legal system, and a public citizen having special responsibility for the quality of justice. We all have that responsibility. And sometimes we push in a hard way for our clients, and that's appropriate. But you have larger responsibilities at the same time. Okay, so we got a hearing 10:30. That's for the Gonzalez family with Mr. Gray. 1:30 is the Associated Press et al. With Mr. Carone. And I think that deals with all the pending motions. For you, Mr. Gray, you articulated what your motion is. So we've addressed that. Correct?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes,
Okay.
yes, Your Honor.
You're welcome. And Mr. Carone, those two issues that are still outliers on your clients, I think that's all we have. The motion to vacate the amended non-dissemination order and the motion to intervene. Anything else that we need to address for your clients, Mr. Carone?
No, Your Honor, unless you mentioned the broadcasting issue as well. I'm not sure if you're going to set a separate briefing schedule for that. Obviously, for the motions, they'll follow the briefing schedule. Since we haven't followed that yet, I just didn't know when exactly you wanted that briefing.
I'm going to send a briefing schedule out for everybody. And now, okay, if we're going to do it on June 9th, you don't have very much time to do those briefs. So that's why I was thinking it made a lot more sense to do it at the end of June. But if you all think you're ready to do that, I'm willing to hear it. But I want those briefs. We'll say by June 2nd. Response briefs will be due by June 6th, and any reply briefs due by June 8th. So that's going to be rapid briefing. I'm just trying to accommodate everybody. Okay? I got a lot of interest floating around on these issues. Without forgetting Mr. Kohberger, who's primary in this case right now. All right, so let's move to, and I mean, anybody who's here for Associated Press or Gonzalez family can be excused if you'd like. We're also happy to have you stay. No problem.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Carell. All right. So what we have now between the parties is motion to compel, which we're moving out. That was kind of a on and off hearing. Disclosures of grand jury materials while protecting those materials from the public. Extension time to file pre-trial motions after receiving materials from grand jury. I believe those are the motions that we have outstanding. Is this, are you arguing these or scheduling these, Ms. Taylor?
Your Honor, we can schedule all of those hearings.
Okay, when do you want to do this?
Your Honor, I think that if the court has June 26th, we can do that. we will be ready to address that round of motions on June 26th.
Excellent. We'll have that 1:30 on June 7th because the Associated Press moved that to the 9th.
June 27th is just fine for us. Right?
Okay, perfect. Well, 1:30. Okay. Is there anything else we need to address today, Mr. Rudley? Mr. Thompson?
Your Honor, I think the June 27th should work fine. For whatever reason, our office hasn't seen copies of the grand jury retrial motions, but I think there was a miscommunication. Those will be coming. We'll be prepared.
Okay, great. And certainly if those issues are resolved between counsel, then we won't have to have a hearing.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so anything else we need to address today, Ms. Taylor?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Watson?
There, thank you.
Okay. Great. So I think Ms. Masseth has been observing on Zoom. I just wanted to identify her, and also Ms. Let's see. Oh, I guess Ms. Beatty is too. So anyway, there are other people on the Zoom. So thank you. Okay. Anything else then? No. Okay. Thank you all. We are adjourned.
Bryan Kohberger exiting this hearing, two hearings that were on the court schedule, one for the gag order, the other for the motion to compel, and that was the pool camera feed, feeding that out to the media. JB here with you live, folks, on WFLA Now. Good to have you back. That's a live shot from outside the Latah County Courthouse. Joining us now live, I want to get right to him. You know him because his name is quite literally the lawyer you know. Peter Tragos is back with us here on stream. Peter, you and I did a lot of conversation about the Idaho murders at the University of Idaho. We did a lot of conversation about Bryan Kohberger and the legal situation surrounding him. Let's just dive right in. We're going to start to take your questions, folks, out of the YouTube, Twitter, Facebook Live comment sections, TikTok as well. Hashtag KJB. Hashtag lawyer, you know, as we let those comments come in with those hashtags so that we can animate them on screen. Peter, your perspective as far as what has unfolded so far today. Bryan Kohberger being arraigned, standing silent, the judge entering a not guilty plea, and now we have a trial date for October 2nd.
Yeah, a residence to commit a murder. He did speak, though, which leads me to bring my guests in to discuss what will the trial look like if Bryan Kohberger goes to trial, whether it be a trial or be a death penalty trial. Let me first start with you, Julie Rendelman. The prosecution noted they had a lot of members of their team on Zoom. The defense had somebody else on Zoom. They've recently brought in a certified trial attorney who is certified in death penalty work. What will this trial look like?
I think it's going to be, you know, look, we always say, assuming they go through the entire phase and not just the penalty phase or something like that, this is going to be all about debunking the idea of the DNA, the cell towers, the computer, who could have used certain things, who could have been driving this car, the fact that the witnesses cannot identify the individual that was inside of the home. It's going to be to me, it's going to be all about not being able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's what I believe the defense is going to focus on throughout this case.
And Ben Chu, you've been involved in one of the biggest high-profile trials we've seen on this network, even though it was a civil case. Now, there's an easy question in a civil case to put your client on. Do you believe that if we have this trial, Bryan Kohberger will take the stand to debunk, to refute all of what Julie just mentioned, cell phone evidence, cell tower evidence, DNA, etc.?
I really think that's going to be the crucial determination that his counsel will have to. Of course, it's ultimately the client's decision, but she's going to have to think long and hard. And I think she may not make her decision until she's seen how the evidence plays out. And as Julie said, how many holes she can poke into, the cell tower evidence. Did they end up finding the murder weapon? Because of the gag order, we don't know the answers to all this question. But if I were her, I would wait till somewhat late in the trial and see what her chances are. And then she will know by then whether his affect that Linda, you and I have noticed is really the way he's going to be, or whether there's another side to him, a more human side. But that will be really the ultimate decision as to whether she puts him on the stand or not.
And of course, depending on whether there's a death penalty decision, that may also factor into it. He could
Absolutely
not testify in one and testify in the other. But let me turn now to the victims. Last week, the four University of Idaho students were remembered for their strength and their inspiration as they were awarded posthumous degrees. Let's take a listen.
The University of Idaho awards posthumous degrees to students who completed sufficient coursework prior to their untimely death. This is a moment for us to acknowledge the contributions they've made and celebrate their academic achievement with their families here today. This spring, we will award 5 posthumous certificates and degrees. During a private ceremony on Monday, we awarded a certificate in marketing to the family of Xana Alexia Kernodle, a certificate in recreation, sport, and tourism management will be delivered to the family of Ethan James Chapin in the coming weeks. Later today in our afternoon commencement ceremony, we will award 2 posthumous bachelor's degrees, a bachelor's degree in general studies to the family of Kaylee Jade Gonsalves, and a Bachelor of Science degree in sociology and criminology to Lupita Colis Ruiz. Now, we will present a Bachelor of Science in Business degree to the family of Madison May Mogan.
Let's repeat their names. Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, known as Maddie, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. And let me bring my 2 guests in to end the
Goodbye. Goodbye.